tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Good morning, everyone. Happy hump day. Blake must be on a really important phone call. I bet you he's got some news for us. See what's going on.
Good morning.
Hello, Blake.
Good morning. And Aaron.
Hello.
How are you?
We're good. We're just in the middle of our commercial break.
Yeah, no worries. I was wondering if you were like making a top secret phone call to give us some news today.
I was actually just on the phone with the Christmas tree farm in Canada because today is the big day. You know, my wife and I bring in trees. It's Wonderland Christmas trees. And
what, they bring them in today, or?
And so on the farm today in Canada is a big day. They're the containers.
They're murdering all the trees.
The containers are arriving, and the trees are being cut and loaded in Canada today.
Ooh.
Murdered and loaded.
Christmas is definitely in the air.
Yes. Do you know, is it an acre of Christmas trees provides enough oxygen for 34 people? Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then when the trees are finished here in Cayman, they get recycled and turned into mulch.
They mulch it.
They
and
do
get
mulch.
repurposed.
Repurposed, and new trees get planted.
Nice.
There you go. So the trees, by the way, if any of your listeners, viewers, audience has purchased trees, they'll be here in about 3 weeks. And then our Wonderland Christmas tree lot opens on Monday, November 29th in the Costulus parking lot.
Nice. Do trees have to be grown, Christmas trees, in a particular temperature? I've always wondered.
Not necessarily. They do grow well in certain environments.
Right.
Cooler temperatures. They take about 10 years though. So trees right now,
What?
yeah, trees that they plant now to replace the ones they're cutting we'll get those in another 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
I know. How about that?
Wow.
By the way, nightly snowfalls. The forecast is calling for snow in Cayman. Nightly snowfalls at our Christmas tree lot. Yeah, it should be fun. And Sandy's getting one. Sandy, you're getting one.
Yay. Yes,
Hey.
I am
All righty.
Awesome.
totally excited.
So we're getting
Soon come.
I know. When do you start decorating for Christmas?
I'm a late decorator, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I wait like December.
We will probably start next weekend. So
I know
start
some
hanging-
people posted yesterday their tree's up already. I was like,
Oh,
what?
I'm pretty sure there are some people that have a tree up from last year.
Probably.
I'm guessing.
Oh,
So,
I'd put a tree up. Or
All
I'd
right.
put my stuff up now.
all right, we're gonna come to you live officially on the air. So stand by. Here we go.
All right.
However, heading towards the airport runway turn, that's where traffic is backed up all the way up towards the four-way stop at Jake Scott. Tip line is open if you see any other problems in your morning time. It's 623-4444. After this musical sweep, we're going to be looking at the situation as you head through South Sound towards Cardinal Avenue.
DMS Traffic is brought to you by Engel and Volkers.
At Engel and Volkers, we understand that buying or selling your home is not simply a real estate transaction. Call 623-1400 or head over to evkman.ky. Engel and Volkers might be hard to say, but we make real estate easy.
Proud member.
Big news.
I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Well, good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
We are
Great.
good. What's
Wonderful.
what's up? What's up in
going
the
on?
news today?
So we finally got some figures yesterday, which I know a lot of people are very, very excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we talked about it just a bit at the top of the show.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if they listen to Kiss FM and Blake and Aaron, but we finally have of those numbers who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. which
Oh,
we
did they
have-
update it?
Yes.
Oh,
Have
good, because everybody seems to think, not everybody, a select few individuals who lean towards conspiracy theories kept saying that it's a conspiracy, why we don't know who's vaccinated, who's unvaccinated.
I mean, not
But it
everything's
must
a
be-
conspiracy.
This is a conspiracy that it must be that the vast majority are vaccinated, and that's why they don't want us to know. I'm so sick of the.
So let me
Yeah.
give you the numbers.
Give
if
it,
you
yeah,
don't
give
know.
it to me, Blake.
So the total, by the way, it was Friday to Monday.
Yes.
So it wasn't up through today or yesterday. It was up through Monday,
Okay.
8 a.m.
Yeah.
So 418
30.
locals.
Okay.
I think there were 19 travelers. Of those, here's the breakdown. 52% of cases were female, 48% male. The ages of positive cases range from 1 month to 80 years old, which included 5 babies under the age of 1. Of this week's positives, 36% were fully vaccinated, 3% were partially vaccinated, 61% were unvaccinated.
There you go.
Those are the numbers.
That's pretty telling. When
Pretty telling.
Send me the link, Blake, for that so I can share it with everyone so that
Yep.
they can know that this is not a case of anybody trying to hide any information. I mean, the messages I was getting, why aren't they telling us? I'm like, you do understand, first of all, that they've changed the reporting protocol. They have said as of last week, Friday, that they would do that. And so you guys just need to wait. And they're going to try to give you meaningful numbers over a period of time. Why would the government be trying to hide who's vaccinated, who isn't vaccinated? It just boggles my mind. It confuses me.
They're just trying to roll out new things. That's it. They're getting closer. They're obviously working on other things. The whole how do we deal with now when the borders open situation?
Absolutely.
Is it sales at Cayman Mile Road? .ky?
You can send it to tips at Cayman Mile Road. Any tips that you have for us, any news stories, any comments?
.com or .ky?
That would be tips.com.
TIP.
Tips.
Okay, Aaron.
Not. Anyway.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Aaron.
All right, on its way to you right now. So those are pretty telling numbers.
Okay, so I
61%.
send that to me so that we can share it far and wide, and you guys can just relax. There's no conspiracy. Nobody's hiding any information. I'm like, the government wants you to participate in providing them with information, folks. That is why they have gone as far as trying to get the census up and running, even in these trying times, so that we can have accurate numbers, population numbers, and so on. Someone was asking me yesterday, or someone made a comment yesterday about why are the census people so nosy? Why do they want to know how many TVs you have in your house and how many bedrooms you have? I'm like, there's a process of education that clearly needs to happen in the community. You do understand the purpose of a census, right? And why they collect this information, because then they can say, the average person in the Cayman Islands only lives in a 500 square foot home. And from that, they can then come up with like income figures, and they can say, well, maybe we need to redefine what we think of as poverty and below the poverty line. And I mean, there's so many important things that come out of this in terms of policy decisions that I'm really flabbergasted that people think this is just about how many TVs you have in your house or how many bedrooms your house is. That's some of the information they collect, but they collect tons of information in the few minutes that they spend with you. And I don't know why people would be offended by that, really.
I mean, I will say it does take, a little bit of time, but it was nice. Katie Ann was lovely. A big shout out to her.
Yeah, I mean, it took maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you don't have 20 minutes to spare for such an important thing, then really and truly.
Yeah, I mean, it only happens. How often does it happen?
I don't even know, to be honest. I don't know, because I don't recall ever participating in a census before, and I've been back since 1996.
But
I'm sure that they've
time on island.
I'm sure they've had one since then. I don't.
About 10 years.
Yeah, no, I've done it twice.
Yeah,
you've done it twice.
I do remember them coming around.
I can't recall having participated in a census. I don't know why that is, but
I remember them coming around.
Last time I let them in the house. This time I don't.
We
stay outside. It's
must have been around 2013, 2014.
Yeah, it would have been about that. Yeah,
somewhere around then. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Anything else happening we need to be aware of?
As you guys know, there was this huge climate summit.
Yeah. And a lot of people took their private planes too.
Yeah.
Who took a private?
I don't know. Maybe all carpool in one plane.
Do a Zoom call.
Or a Zoom call is probably the best option. And I know you can't all go in one plane.
Well, it was interesting. 100 country leaders were there from all over the world. The Caribbean was actually well represented. We do have a photo here of everyone. There they go. So there's the Cayman Islands in the mix, as well as.
I didn't know they went to the summit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It was well attended. The premier is obviously there. And it's interesting to see him participate in this, because he has really, ran on a platform of protecting the environment. He's the first ever government official to actually add the Ministry of, Sustainability to his portfolio. And so it's just super interesting that we could actually have leadership that cares about the environment for change. Yeah. So we're waiting on some really concrete things to come out of that. And then another big news yesterday locally, raccoon number 2 was actually caught. Did you guys see that? Poor little
We
critter.
did. We did.
But I'm surprised. You know what surprised me about the whole thing is that he was still in that area. He didn't really go far, which, is interesting. I guess he's probably pretty confused. But yes, so the raccoon was finally caught, and it was excitement when he was caught. Like literally, I got a message. Oh my gosh, the bus just like stopped. And I think the bus actually might have hit him. I'm not 100% sure, but it came to a screeching halt. And then people had to get off that bus and be put in another bus. And he ran in the bushes. And it was almost like he was a fugitive at that moment. And all the.
That's sad. I
saw a video. It didn't look like when he was captured, didn't look like he was injured from being hit or anything.
No, yeah, we'll share the video because it looked like he was all right up until that point.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of excitement in West Bay yesterday.
Somebody the other day or yesterday was like, "Hey, you're talking about they had the video of the raccoon being caught. They're like, why can't they just give this to the Turtle Center and make them an attraction?"
I mean, would you?
I tell you know what? I thought about this. Like, I kind of thought about it long and hard. And as an animal lover myself, it is difficult to hear that they had to euthanize him or her. That one was a male. But I think that from a practical perspective, I completely get it. Because raccoons are actually pretty smart. And so they know how to pick locks and how to get out of things, right? So you lock him up at the turtle farm, which I don't know if that's any more humane, to be honest, when you think about it.
That's what I think is like,
and then he ends up getting out because they are smart little critters. Apparently they can memorize and remember how they picked a lock. I mean, I was reading up on them. I'm like, these little guys are smart. So say that he gets out and he gets in a fight with, a dog. Now you've got rabies introduced into the community, which is something that you've never had before. And I think people don't appreciate what our rabies-free status does for us. But especially when it comes to, transporting your pets and that sort of thing, it really makes life like so incredibly easy. And there's a reason why you can't bring animals easily from other jurisdictions because they're not rabies-free. So, I don't think that they had much of a choice. It's unfortunate, but
are we going to find out? Are they going to test them and find out and make sure see if they had rabies?
Yeah, they sent off the test for the first one. I don't know how long the results take, but the only way to test them is to actually take brain samples, which means they have
brain matcher.
That's crazy.
It's too bad you can't. They couldn't repatriate the animals to back to the States, but
they didn't want them.
Yeah, they didn't want them.
They're like,
we don't need our raccoons back.
I mean, it's not like it's a national.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's not considered high on the.
It's not a shortage of raccoons.
It's not like a
they're a nuisance to most people in the U.S. Unfortunately, so
they are.
I'm sure the Florida Agriculture Department was like, "Why would we want this thing back? Keep
Correct. Yeah. All right, Sandy. Well, catch CMR right now live on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, awesome. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, folks, PACT Wednesday is here. We will be joined later on by none other than Minister of Tourism. Oh, I completely missed that. Thank you so much. Kevin is such on the ball. So they did release the figures and somehow I missed it. I think Christina sent that out and I just completely missed it. So let's have a look at that here in a second. Give me 1 second to just download it. So, yes, nobody's hiding anything, folks. Don't worry about it. There's no top secret here. All of the information has been released, and we are going to share it here in a second with you guys. So we do have the minister, Mr. Kenneth Bryan, coming on a bit later on this morning around, I think, 8 or 8:30. I can never remember, but I kind of think it's 8:30. So Minister Bryan, we are waiting for you around that time. We'll see him then. So in the meantime, we got lots and lots of stuff to talk about. So Okay. So a couple of things that we want to talk about. So yesterday, as you guys know, the lady that we were discussing who came on a Cayman Airways flight, where she essentially, why does this say for the week of October 24th? So that's, I saw this, but I ignored it. I think I was looking for another date is why that is. Okay. So she was supposed to be in court yesterday. She actually didn't show up to court from what I'm hearing. She has a lawyer. Mess with her, lawyered up. So she has a lawyer, and her lawyer's Brady. And I understand that Mr. Brady was there. To be honest, I was in court in the morning myself, and then I had to go to another case, which is a Tortuga robbery case, because that's on again. And I was watching that. So I kind of missed her appearance, but I went and checked in with some sources over there in that courthouse. And apparently she has a lawyer, and I guess he was speaking on her behalf. But that's kind of weird, because most times, especially for your first court appearance, you're supposed to show up in person. So I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to request that court file to see, but it was probably just a mention. So, the first go off. Normally when you show up the first time, they're just serving you your papers. So the DPP's office will give you the relevant papers, and, you accept those, and it's just more of a formality. And you don't normally plead the first time that you show up in court in any event. So good morning to everyone. I see all of the usual suspects are here. Evelyn, Marshall, Catherine, Miss Lily, Azita, Diamond Princess, Mitzi, Alice. Emma says, good morning, CMR family. Blessed and safe day to all. Let's do our part to minimize the spread of this COVID. Yes, girl, do your part. If y'all missed last night's show about how to contain the spread in your businesses and in your homes, churches, gyms, go back, folks, and have a look at it. Great show again last night. Good morning, Felicia, Charlene. Faith is here. Faith, every 10 years. It's so strange because I honestly cannot remember ever participating in a census before this year. So I don't know, was I off island 10 years ago? I don't know. It's really weird though, but I don't remember. Maybe I did it and just don't remember it. I don't know. Charlene says the mentality is astonishing. Good morning to Dorothy. So as we talk about COVID numbers, someone sent me a video yesterday that I could simply not work my brain around. All right, listen. Lateral flow tests are here, folks. And they're supposed to be an easier way of testing everyone in your household very, very quickly. In like 15 minutes, you can find out the test results. Pretty simple to do. And Dr. Lee has demonstrated how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, if you don't read instructions, you can go on YouTube, you can do a quick video. I was really shocked and surprised to see a mother posting videos of her children on social media that she had taken where she was administering the lateral flow test. And I got to tell you, I am very, I'm grossed out very, very easily. So I always feel like there's certain things that I really shouldn't even watch. I'm the kind of person that if I see you picking your nose, you and I can never be friends. Seriously, just don't do it. Don't be around me and picking anything. I don't like people picking their ears, their nostrils, it's come on, folks. It's just nasty. And little kids pick their noses all the time. Apparently it's supposed to be good for them, is what I read in some parenting magazine. And I was just like, ew. So I'm always, this is a little bit gross, but when my daughter was going to be looking at her and be like, don't even think about it. Don't stick your finger in your nose. She's like, why? I'm like, don't do it. So I think she's going to be just as gross out just because I've put this thing in her head. Don't touch your nose. Anyway, this mother demonstrated, I guess, how not to do it. So, I don't even know why she, but anyway, she posted this video on social media, and Miss Sue, maybe just refresh your Miss Sue, try refreshing your connection, because I don't think we're frozen. But and the child, like, she's going, I mean, you see her doing it with such force that really is disturbing to watch, right? She's like in there, like, I was like, what the hell are you doing? It was almost like she had a spoon and she's trying to dig something out of a hole, and the poor child is wincing and is in obvious pain. Folks, if you do not know how to do a lateral flow test, which is so simple to do, you need to go and just Google it. YouTube is your friend with simple things like this, right? Dr. Lee has demoed it, and you can just Google it yourself. It's not that hard. Let me just look it up. There's probably 1,000 videos. See one right here of Dr. Lee and how to do it. He just twirls around the outer part of his nostril. He doesn't go in there digging up his nostrils. This isn't a PCR test. That's the whole point. And even a PCR test is not administered with that kind of force that I saw this mother doing it with. I was very, very disturbed at this. People, please, I'm begging you to utilize a little bit of common sense, especially as it relates to your children. I mean, you know that you can actually do damage to a child by sticking something. That's why we tell children, don't do it themselves. Like, don't stick stuff up your nostrils, because it can be a very dangerous exercise. And then you're doing it with such incredible force that your child is probably going to have brain damage. And then you post it on social media because you want to show that you are parent of the year. Susan or Maria, Leanne, good morning. Good morning, Miss Sue. And someone posted, when we shared that video on social media, someone said something about, oh, well, why not have the nurses at the schools do it? I'm just like, my mind is blown on a regular basis in this community. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. Like, seriously, y'all really, like, why, if we're going to have nurses at school do it, you might as well do the PCR test. The whole purpose, folks, of the lateral flow test is because it's supposed to be so simple to do that probably that raccoon that was picked up yesterday has enough sense to do it correctly. And the whole idea, folks, is that you do it at home with a degree of frequency, and you don't use up resources like school nurses who have other things that they're trying to get done. That's the whole reason why you get kits and you go home and you can test every other day, every third day, to see if you and the members of your household have it. It's about taking personal accountability, and involvement for the spread of COVID-19. So the idea is you self-test at home. You have an idea of whether you're positive or not. And they say that they're relatively accurate. They're not 100%. And no, they're not as accurate as the PCR test. But, there's some numbers that put them in the 90-something percentile. That's still pretty good. And the idea is that you then know whether or not this is, something that you need to, once you've tested, do I need to self-isolate? Do I need to, keep the entire family at home? This is what it is, folks. Louis is saying that I'm frozen, but I'm actually watching myself on YouTube, on Facebook. Sorry, we've got 200. All right, let me just refresh the connection because something's going on here this morning. So let's do a quick refresh. We have almost 300 people online. Just hang in there. Hold on. All right, I'm back. Is that any better? Let me refresh my window over here. So let's hope that has fixed the issue. I might actually have too many windows open. Sometimes I feel like I do that. My husband tells me I do that all the time. He's like, why do you have 50 tabs open and all these apps that use up your resources? I'm like, what's the point of a computer if I can't do that? So I'm going to close out. I do have a little graphics program in the background that's probably using a lot of the processor. So I'm going to close that. Let me see what else I can close. Are we back? All right. So Ms. Charlene says they're very easy to do. So I pulled up a YouTube video, folks. I'm going to show you guys exactly how easy they are to do. Sue says, poor kids. That's the idea, is to make it easier. It's supposed to be the idea to make it easier. And I just don't know what's wrong with people. Amelia said that the old folks used to say that if kids had worms, when you see them picking their noses, time for the worm medicine. Oh, I don't want to really think too deeply about that. But yes, I think that honestly, am I still frozen, folks, or can you guys see me now? Leanne, good morning. All right, I think we're okay. All right, 282 people between YouTube and Facebook. Let's do a quick shout out to the census folks, since we were just talking about them. Folks, it is really, really important for you to participate in the census. The census isn't about people being in your business. The census is about the government, the Economics and Statistics Office, being able to acquire useful information that then they can do a lot of reporting on. For example, when they talk about, well, what access does the community have? Like how deep is the penetration for internet? In other words, how many people have access to internet in their homes? They're not trying to be nosy. Nobody cares really. Like, oh, I don't have internet. That's not what it's about. It's about, if we know that we live in a population of 70,000 people and we have 80% of the people who do not have internet, when things happen, like they've got to shut down the country and you have to go into lockdown and your kids have to distance learn, that could disenfranchise 20% of the population. So those types of decisions become important, and the government only has the available information to make those decisions when they have things like census information. That's why they ask you some of the questions that they ask. It might not be obvious to you how the information will be utilized, but believe me, it's not about somebody trying to be up in your business. Nobody's really that concerned about you at that level. It's about trying to put the figures together for the entire population. How many people live in a household where you've got 10 people living in the household? All y'all talking about, everybody living on top of each other. And there's certain areas of the community that are oversaturated, the population, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, let's say that you live in Windsor Park and governments can see, wow, Windsor Park, based on our census information, is a highly dense area of the country. So in other words, per square feet of Windsor Park, we have 10 people living in these homes, right? That might help planning, development. Think about this. Make some decisions about whether or not to allow any further expansions or building even in that community, in that area. So it makes sense. I'm just throwing some ideas out here, folks, but it makes sense why you would want to participate in the census.
Beginning the 10th of October, residents across the Cayman Islands will be invited to participate in the 2021 census. What is the census? Simply put, the census is a head count of every person living in the Cayman Islands. The population count and data are protected and authorized by the Statistics Act. The information is confidential and cannot be shared with any law enforcement agencies. Your response helps guide business, social, and economic planning for the future of our islands. The 2021 census will inform decisions on how millions of dollars are allocated for roads, schools, hospitals and healthcare clinics, fire, emergency response services, and other programs. Census enumerators will visit your household, ask a few questions like how many people live in your house, including their age and sex. Every person counts, no matter who you are or where you live. So have your say in the 2021 census.
To be honest, for me, it's astonishing that we could have an island as small as Cayman and not even know what our population numbers are. If for no other reason than that, folks, you should really participate in the census. And, what many of you may not know is that Remy's asking, when is the big cheese in? Around 8:30, Mr. Bryan should be joining us. So a lot of you may not know that the ESO office actually collates information, not just when they do the census every 10 years. That's kind of the big one. But throughout, they collect information like every single year. As a retailer, they would always be dropping off their little forms for me, and there's certain things that they want to know, in terms of your employment numbers and other information. So, it's really, really important that you participate. Okay. So yes, Remy, the big cheese should be here pretty soon. I think he's probably getting all dolled up and ready to come on. All right. So listen, let us just play a quick video on how to do a lateral flow test. Because like I said, someone mentioned, let's just show people how to do it. And, I thought it was easy as pie, but apparently pie isn't that easy. So let's go over it, folks. This is how you do a lateral flow test. If you missed this, or you got friends who missed it and they can't read the instructions on the box or whatever, please go to YouTube. There's probably 1,000 of these sensible videos on how to do it.
Hi, Andy from New Leaf Health here. I just want to take you through the lateral flow tests that we're recommending to our clients at New Leaf Health for protection against COVID-19. The reason why I'm demonstrating this to you, you'll see the simplicity of using the FlowFlex test, particularly compared to some of the free tests that have been made available to us all in recent times. The most important thing is you don't need to fast before you do the test. We do recommend blow your nose before testing. That'll help improve accuracy. Give your hands a good clean. Okay, and then get straight on to the test. Simple process of opening up the wrappers. I'm sure we've all done plenty of these in our time. Pick up the swab. This time around though, we're only inserting the swab into the anterior nares here, which is the flared part of the nostril. Okay, 2 centimeters in, and we roll that swab around the nostril 4 or 5 times. Extract and remove it to the other nostril. Okay, 4 or 5 times round. Notice we're not going deep into the cavity, which makes the eyes water, or deep into the posterior nasopharynx, which is very uncomfortable and needs a professional to do that test. So I've got my my specimen, open up the buffer extraction tube, pop the swab in, and just spend 20-30 seconds mixing that swab. Okay, just tapping it around the sides and then squeezing, and then tap around the sides. But just keep the swab in the solution, mixing it around. Okay, 20 to 30 seconds. Don't speed this process up, and then you will have a good sample to put onto the testing cassette, which I'll show you shortly. Okay, so this is my early morning test. Put the cap back on. Once the cap's on, just open up your test cassette. Save the opening of the test cassette up until you're ready to put the specimen on. Okay, and we're just going to target the sample well. Unscrew the lid, invert, and squeeze in 4 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't get any easier than that. And then I just hit my countdown button on my phone, and at the 15-minute point, I'm going to revisit the test cassette to see if I've got a positive or a negative test result. The big thing to take away from this session is simplicity and speed of the test, and we believe the most accurate and the most suitable test for any workplace, and it is CE approved and MHRA registered as a self-test, and that's quite vital. Thanks very much.
Oh, sorry. Forgot to unmute. My apologies. I was actually saying that I was hoping, thank you, Miss Charlene. She says that following the new protocol guidelines, children that are at home with positives in their household are to be tested daily, even if they're negative for 10 days. I was really hoping that we could have had someone on the show who can then talk about the lateral flow test protocols as well as the isolation protocols. So we're still trying to work on maybe having them come on, the sooner the better, because I think a lot of people are just really, really confused. If we cannot get them on, folks, we will sit here and just go through it ourselves and figure it out. It is a 7-page document. And I think that maybe some videos and kind of mixing it up in terms of how they're delivering that information could be useful. So, yeah, so let's talk about some of the numbers. I don't know. I know poor Kevin logged off, but here's some breaking news for you. Happening right now, 8:04 a.m. Ambulance is at the government building, going in with a stretcher into the government administrative building. We don't know what's going on yet, folks, but we got several sources telling us that something's going on at GAB. So hopefully everybody's okay. We don't know if it's related to COVID. You know, people die outside of COVID still. So, or it might just be someone not feeling well. So again, an ambulance is at the government administrative building, and someone is going in with a stretcher. So we'll keep you guys updated on that situation as soon as we know a little bit more. Carol, thank you. Says, can they address the fact that we can't buy lateral flow tests on island anywhere? For those of us who work, we missed out because the yummy mummies get it all before anybody else had a chance. Well, I mean, the government said that they had several thousand lateral flow tests, and you know, they were reserving their capacity for students. So their supply was going to be focused on students who need it. So what I would say is more coming from private sector, but I think that unfortunately government is trying to keep their supply for the families that would need it because they have children in public schools in particular, but even the private schools will have access as well. So let's watch the video, folks, with our latest breakdown of the COVID numbers. So I know everybody was like, oh, why aren't they releasing numbers? And my apologies, because it seems like I actually missed this video last night. The numbers came up pretty late and we reported the text of what was sent. But I saw this video and I think I saw October 24th. I was wondering if this was like old information or whatever. But this is actually the breakdown. So for those of you who were thinking that they were conspiring against you to not provide the breakdown, here it is. So there's no conspiracy here, folks. Relax.
For the week of October 24 to 30, 2021, there was an average of 131 new COVID-19 cases per day. Of these, 2.5% were travelers. 52% of the cases were female, 48% male. The age range was 1 month to 80 years with an average age of 34 years. There were 5 babies under the age of 1 year. 14% were in the age group of 1 to 18 years, and 1% were over the age of 70. Most of the cases are members of our workforce. 36% were fully vaccinated, 3% partially vaccinated, and 61% are unvaccinated. During last week, 4 cases were admitted and 2 were discharged. In the context of wide community transmission, public health is advising enhanced vigilance in your prevention strategies. If you are isolated or quarantined, you may still prevent ongoing transmission if you adhere to the recommendations. Wear your mask, use hand sanitizer, and practice physical distancing. Vaccination clinics continue at the Lions Center and Camana Bay locations, as well as the district events that are advertised on the HSA and government websites and on other social media platforms.
Ho, ho, ho! It's that time of year again. Christmas is right around the corner, and you do not want to delay. Because of COVID-19, there are numerous logistics delays expected. Give yourself the gift of a true Christmas miracle by planning ahead with Miracle Brokers. Whether you're moving halfway around the world or ordering a new car for your loved one, contact Miracle today at 949-5989.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. Kevin, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good, Sandra. How are you?
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining the show. You had a fantastic show last night. Thank you.
Not a problem. Yeah, my boss and who I call my work big sisters, they really enjoyed being able to share some of the knowledge and
Awesome.
and offer some tips.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting because remind me of the young lady's name that was on
Angela.
yesterday. Sorry?
Angela.
She was talking about how incredibly easy it is to spread COVID. And she relied on her own experience of last year, how they had, they were trying to celebrate Christmas, but trying to keep in mind some COVID restrictions. And despite not attending the big family event, even when they, her husband and her son decided to go around and drop off presents, that because people were not being completely forthcoming about the fact that they were actually symptomatic, her husband and her son were still exposed to the coronavirus, because when they went and dropped off presents, they're sitting there with people who are symptomatic and who are not saying, oh yeah, I've got all these symptoms. What on earth?
It's
She
a real
did not
thing.
seem happy about that.
No, not at all. I remember when she was going through it, and absolutely, it made her very mad. I mean,
Yeah,
and rightly so. And to what my boss had even said, what Ryan said is a lot of people are just selfish and they don't really necessarily think of the impacts that could happen. Yes, you might be young and relatively healthy and do okay with the getting COVID, but the potential of you spreading it to someone who is not able to do so well with COVID, it's actually much higher than you think, and you have to think about other people. You can't be selfish. We're not in just normal times where passing on a cold to someone or even the flu to someone, but even though that could be pretty bad, we're not in those times where it might not be as severe. COVID is so much worse, and we want to do absolutely everything we can to protect one another, because ultimately, you don't want to be responsible to cause someone to have a not so good outcome.
Exactly. Good morning to Perla. Magdalene said it was a great show last night. Chantal said people just don't care. They only care about themselves. And this is so sad, because when you have a communicable disease of all things, you're not the only person who matters. That's why even when people are saying, when I get vaccinated or not, that's my business. It's like, not quite, because the vaccination numbers overall in a community will impact how the virus will spread.
Right.
And we just had some breakdown.
Being vaccinated is going to significantly reduce the chance of you getting it. And now the data, I am so happy they're finally sharing the data, but just look at the numbers.
Yeah. So Kevin, I want you to break it down for us. I'll give you the floor.
Absolutely. So the unvaccinated population, that makes up 61% of the new cases. That's the majority, 61%. If it was an election, the unvaccinated people just won. You're spreading the virus, you're getting the virus, you're the ones that's spreading it. The fully vaccinated people, 36%. Yes, that's still a significant number, but that just means all of those vaccinated individuals out there are not, they might be exposed, but they're not getting it. They have that protection, and ultimately they're going to be not going to the hospital. Most of them aren't going to be going to the hospital because they have that extra protection. And about 3% are partially vaccinated. So data is out there. It's no different than the data that we had here in the United States and throughout the world that shows the unvaccinated people are the ones that are really making up the majority of cases. And so those who want to argue otherwise, you really don't have a leg to stand on right now, because again, the data is showing exactly how effective the vaccines are. Sure, people vaccinated will certainly get it. That is 100% true. I know a lot of breakthrough cases. I know a lot of people who have been fully vaccinated and got it. However, when you're in a situation like a bar or other place where you're getting exposed so many times, if you go out and you're around someone that might be sick and you're getting hit so many times with the virus, the vaccine can only protect you so much. I've compared it multiple times before to someone, going into a gunfight with a bulletproof vest or other protective gear. Yes, you might be shot a couple of times and you're probably going to be okay. But if you keep on getting hit over and over and over, ultimately it's going to break through and you're going to not have necessarily the best outcome. It's very, very similar when you have that vaccine protection. But looking at the data, breaking down what Dr. Hazel Brown said, it shows that the vaccinated people are really the ones that are protected a whole lot more than the unvaccinated people. Again, millennials and the younger baby boomers, they're the ones that are getting it more. That's your workforce people. That means those are the people somewhere between 18 and about 70 or so, those workforce folks. They're the ones that are going to be out in the community a lot more. But those who are not getting it as much are those over 70 years old and older. That makes up only 1% of the cases. And looking at the younger ones, the babies, it's only 5 babies, 5 infants that got it. And then for the minors, that's our students, somewhere between 1 and 18, only 14%, which is, not as significant as the workforce. That means, schools seem to be doing a pretty good job at protecting those children, because we do know that most of those children aren't vaccinated. So that means that actually shows that schools are doing what they're supposed to be doing by keeping a pretty safe environment there for the students. And in terms of who's getting it, doesn't matter if you're male or female. 52% female, 48% male. That's more or less the same. That's close enough in range to say it doesn't matter what your gender is. You're able to get it. And according to the release, this is the report that just came out. That's the first of a weekly update. So you're not going to see those daily updates anymore. So the last week, from October 24th to October 30th, that's the range that this data covered. And so each week, it looks like they're going to be providing this information just once a week to bring everyone up to date on the latest data.
I think this is fantastic, Kevin, because a lot of people have been asking, including the media, for this detailed information. Like, we wanted to know what percentage are vaccinated, what percentage are not unvaccinated, and so on. And I think what was happening, because there was the transition over to this new reporting protocol, and maybe a lot of the general public didn't appreciate that this was happening, people automatically go into conspiracy mode. Help me out here, Kevin. Why is everything a conspiracy these days? Like, is it just, aside from COVID, so let's just sweep COVID to the side, right? I find like people are just so untrusting. Like, have we moved from an era of every single thing that's provided to you? Because I'm waiting for people to come back now and try to say that this information has somehow been miscued, or I'm just like, why are people such doubting Thomases?
I'm guessing it's just easier for some people to believe that, government's trying to control you or something. I really don't quite understand it. I know there were times that I questioned some of the data when we were going through our initial waves. Remember, I've been through a lot of the rise in COVID over the years, because here in Florida, we were not in a bubble. And so, there were a couple of times that I started to question some of the data. And then, of course, I am not the experts, but I do see the raw data. And so I go to my experts and have them break it down. And trust me, my experts that I work with, they do not have time to be watching the news or listening to politicians or listening to all of the noise that's out there. All they're doing all day long is looking at doing what they do in public health and looking at the data and doing their absolute best based on the many years of school that they went through, as well as going home at night and taking care of their families and even putting their families aside to come back to work the next day to do the same thing. They don't have time to listen to the news coverage and stuff. That's my job. My job is to monitor the media and then correct that mis and disinformation that's spreading out there.
Right. And try to break it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A lot of people, listen, I always tell people, check your sources, pay attention to where the information is coming from. And then, you know how much faith you should be able to put in that source, right? But and I tell people, go look at the reports, go look at the studies. But I find a lot of people are not going to be inclined to do that. Number one, they're going to not be able to read what and understand what it is that they're actually looking at. And I want to talk about this a little bit because it has nothing to do, like, I'm not trying to insult anyone and talk about your level of comprehension or intellect or whatever, because you could be an intelligent person. We saw this with Dr. Tomlinson, not to pick on him, but this was a factual thing and we never were able to double back. I think we were going to actually try to find a lawyer to like dissect it, but listen, we can just talk about this and set the record straight. Dr. Tomlinson came on this program during our COVID Spotlight series with an epidemiologist, and he said that he had a letter from someone at the FDA who was informing him that the Pfizer vaccine in particular had not gotten full authorization. Now, Kevin, we asked him to send that letter. He was in communication with you. Give us an update on exactly what happened after.
Yeah, so he started sending some bits and pieces of information. He kept on taking photographs and sending me, different snippets of different documents. And eventually he sent me the full package. And so when I started looking at it, I'm like, well, you're misreading this, sir, and tried to explain to him what that was saying. And so it was more or less saying that, it was walking you through who had the full approval, who has the emergency use authorization. Remember, there's kind of a few phases it goes through. First is the EUA, the emergency use authorization, which was the first approval. And some of the Pfizer vaccine is still under emergency use authorization. That is those who are between the ages of, I think it's 12 to, it's the minors. I think it's 12 to 16. Anything over that has the full FDA approval. So he was looking at the information that showed that, the vaccine is still under emergency use authorization, but not really looking at the whole entire thing. I took him to the FDA website. I shared with him videos and stuff where they had public forums to explain the information. And this misinformation started because of poorly worded. I mean, a lot of times, those who are data scientists, they might not necessarily be the best at communicating. They're very, very technical and they use very technical language. It's almost like reading a legal document. It's not a very easy read at times. And so they sometimes need people like public information officers, my type of colleagues, to sometimes take that technical language and break it down into something that most people can understand. Most of the releases and information that I put out, I tried to write it so a fourth grade individual could understand it. Try to break it down in simplest terms. Now, some people could try to argue that, the little bit of nuances, the little bit of information that might be taken out of context, because, not everything is just black and white. Not everything is just that clean cut. And so trying to put it in a term for the common people to understand, the majority of people that's out there, sometimes could be very difficult. And those who are in that higher level scientific or medical community, they don't necessarily do a great job at breaking it down. I know you have a background in technical writing, Sandra, where you have a good understanding on how to break things down so you could communicate it effectively to the audience. And so
absolutely,
initially, it was written in a very technical way where it could have been misinterpreted in a couple of ways. And that's unfortunately what happened with Dr. T. He was not understanding and not able to really understand what this was actually saying. And so the CDC and the FDA did multiple clarifications to ensure people understood the facts. You go on the FDA website right now, you will see that the Pfizer vaccine has full FDA approval for the Pfizer, which has a new name, Comenity, or however you say it.
Yeah, that's their corporate name. I think the trading as name is Pfizer or whatever. And this is really an important point, Kevin, because there's a couple things here that occurred to me even that evening as Dr. T was on the show, right? But then later finding out that he was actually just misunderstanding the email that he had received. So as you rightfully said, I do have a degree in technical and professional writing. I didn't go in that field as a profession, But I know that a lot of people, that's why they take that degree, is what they then do. And it depends. Like sometimes they're professional technical writers for like IT, like they specialize in IT field. Sometimes they go into medicine and other areas. But the whole idea is that that person can take the really complex data and the really complex information and break it down so that at least someone with a high school education, like you said, you go even lower down to 4th grade level, can really, really comprehend and understand it. So there are different levels of, when you're writing, there's different levels of writing. That's one of the things about CMR. Like when you go to the average, and there's some cases, some stories, I should say, that are a little bit more difficult, especially when we get into like some of the legal stuff. I try to keep it simple. Sometimes, you know, I almost feel like I have a flashback from when I was in law school and I was dissecting a case, and then I'd have to write a summary about it, or I'd have to talk about the findings in the case. At that level, I didn't have to dumb it down for my professor. Obviously, my professor had more knowledge than me. They have the understanding of the legal terms, etc. But you have to be mindful of who your audience is when you're breaking down complex information. And complex information can be different for different people. You know, people have different reading levels. People have different comprehension levels. And one of the wonderful things, that's why I love what Kevin has been doing with all of the guests that we've had on the show, is that they've done a really good job of just explaining it in layman's terms, as simple as you can get. This is why you want to get vaccinated. This is how it's going to protect you. Yes, Pfizer does have full use authorization for 16 and over. Now that 12 to 16, or not, sorry, 5 to 12, is it 5 to 16 is now going to be given full authorization as well. Like they're, you know, getting all the final details of that, where even as early as next week, the kids can start getting vaccinated. But you've got to be able to break it down. So I'm not entirely surprised that, yes, Dr. T is an intelligent person, but his intelligence is probably limited to what he does for a living, right? So for him to take a document that is written in, you know, a little bit more complex language and actually misunderstand certain elements of the document, I'm not really surprised by that. For him to question, oh, well, this is a different company that got authorization, that was just a complete lack of understanding. Because even when I read up on it, I could see that Comirnaty and Pfizer are the same company. But, you know, some companies trade as, and people came out and do it all the time. Like I can have a company, I can be Sandra Hill trading as ABC Fashions, or I could have an incorporated company, Comirnaty, trading as Pfizer. So Pfizer is like the commercial name, but you know, the actual legal name, it's like what Facebook did the other day. Facebook has changed their business name, their corporate name is now Meta. Facebook, the app, and you go to facebook.com, that's going to remain as Facebook, right? So, you know, all of these things, it's like, okay, just led him to be, I think, a little bit confused. Now, the difficulty of this is his level of confusion was then transmitted to other people. So someone who you think, oh, well, Dr. T knows everything. I know some of you worship the ground that he walks on, but all people can get things wrong on occasion. No matter how intelligent you may think you are, how intelligent you are, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes you misunderstand something and sometimes you just get it wrong. And these things are not always easy to understand. And there are people now who have been, you know, putting him on a Holy Grail platform and have said, oh, just because Dr. T said it, it's 100% accurate and I have to believe it. It's so ironic because those same people question everything that everybody else tells them. So this is where when we talk about confirmation bias, no, you only believe what Dr. T is telling you because that's what you want to believe. It's not that, you know, he has proven to you that he has a certain level of comprehending complex documents. He hasn't proven that to you at all. It's just that you like Dr. T, you're his family, you grew up with him, you go to church with him. And these things matter when it comes to human relationships. So you trust people who you have a relationship with, who you have a long-standing relationship with. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how human beings operate. But you should also know the way that you want to question people you don't even know, like Fauci and all these other experts who spent decades in their profession. Maybe you might also want to question your personal physicians and say, well, hold on a second. well, why do you say it doesn't have full use authorization when 99% of the rest of the population out there, all the scientific journals, all the other physicians, everybody else is saying something different? Why would anybody think that Dr. T has special information that nobody else in the world has? Like, to me, that defies logic. That doesn't make any logical sense. And that's where,
and I did challenge him with that, because I said, Dr. T, what's your background in? He's a surgeon, and he's the one that delivered my sister and I. I mean, he was a very good doctor, absolutely. So, but he is not someone who works for the FDA. And let me, just like you were saying, something that kind of defies logic. If the information was wrong, why is he one of the only people who sees it a different way compared to all of the other people out there in the world that is publicly talking about it? We got the FDA sharing it, sharing the information. You have the president of the United States stating it. You have everyone out there who really, there's a lot of lawyers out there in the world. If there was some sort of argument to be made that this is not FDA approved, do you think that someone else wouldn't have picked up on it by now and been shouting and screaming about it? Why is a surgeon in the Cayman Islands, a little spot on the atlas, on the globe, why is he the only one that picked this up? Or very few people are saying this bit of information saying it's not FDA approved. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't even make any logical sense. For those who want to question everything, logic is important. And this shows the logical fallacies that exist. And why, again, there's something called confirmation bias. But Kevin, stick a pin in it. I don't know how much time you've got today, but we do have to give some time for PACT Wednesday. The Honorable Kenneth Bryan is here, and he's got to go to work, folks. Now, I know it's hard for y'all to believe the politicians work, and they keep hours, but this government has actually been doing a pretty good job of doing that. So Kev, I'm just going to pull you out. If we can pull you back in later on to discuss some of these other things, that'd be fantastic. Because one of the things I want to talk to Kevin about as a communications expert, especially as it relates to public health, how do we deliver complex information? So this is where the government now needs to pay attention, because they're not, in my opinion, doing the best job of delivering even the new policies and dissecting that information and breaking it down for you, the average person, to really comprehend. And they need to do that, right? There's a reason why we don't write at a college and university level in CMR, because we're trying to get y'all to just get the point of the story and understand what's going on. So Honorable Kenneth Bryan, wagwan.
Good morning. Nothing agwan. Good morning, Kim. Good morning.
I know you have been keeping busy, Minister Bryan. We've not seen you in a minute. Everybody's been asking me, where is Kenneth? And I'm like, boy, the man busy. He's working hard. First of all, congratulations. And I'm going to say this so incredibly tongue-in-cheek, but knowing that you are going to work every day, you're keeping office hours, you're in the government admin building, you're using your desk. I'm going to talk about after Kenneth has left the show, I'm going to tell you all about a contrasting situation, because you're going to chuckle a little bit. But I don't want to take away from Kenneth's mission here this morning, which is to highlight some of the things that he has been busy doing in the community. Now, Kenneth, we know that, let me give you your proper title. Minister Bryan, the Honorable Minister
Kenneth is fine, Sandra. I don't want to be put in the clouds. That's what happens. They get lost in the clouds. I'm still Kenneth. Did nothing change. I just got a little bit more responsibility.
A lot more responsibility, not just a little bit. But we know that you've been busy with your government responsibilities, right? But what we want to focus on with the PACT Wednesdays is what have you guys been doing in your constituencies on the ground over the last couple months? So give us a brief synopsis of some of the things that have been going on. And I saw someone post a picture. I should have find it again, but I can't remember who posted it now. But they actually had a picture of you just this past weekend, I believe, in a tree. And I wanted to share the photo because it made me chuckle a little bit, because you were in a tree with a saw in your hand. And I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, Kenneth looks like he's about to saw off the limb that he's on. I think I was like, I hope Kenneth got better sense than that, because that would not have ended well. But
No, it wouldn't.
tell us exactly what you've been up to.
Thank you so much. Good morning, K-Man. Good morning, my road viewers, the loyalists. Big shout out to you. It's a pleasure to be back on the show. I know it's been a while since I've spoken to everybody. And it's becoming a common thing, unfortunately, because of the new role and responsibilities. In respect to what I've been doing in the community, a lot less than I used to do, because we're really trying to get everything ready for the reopening in the next 17 days, as well as preparing for the budget for the next 2 years. And obviously trying to get under control all the responsibilities that I have from Airports Authority, Cayman Airways, Port Authority, Turtle Farm, Transport Unit, Pedro St. James, Botanic Park, and all the various different committees of responsibilities. So that task as a new minister is one that I pride myself to make sure that I understand fully and that I'm ready, because I can promise you this, as a former opposition member, when budget time comes in Finance Committee, they're going to be ready with all the questions. And I want to make sure that I can prove to the country that I am a very capable minister. So this 4 years is going to be the deciding factor of whether you can truly be a good leader or not. And if you can't be a good minister, then you can't be a good leader, because we never know what the future may hold. So I've been putting a lot of effort in respect to being able to be prepared for the next 3.5 years of being a minister responsible for these areas. So you're a company CEO, and obviously that's a major transition from being more of a community leader representative, whereby you're constantly in the community. And funny enough, I was going to do a video the other day about trying to break this down to the public and make them understand the contrast between when I was in opposition and my ability to be in the community a whole lot more compared to what I'm doing now. So they can understand that I haven't ran away. I'm just focusing on those issues that, from a policy perspective, to try to start affecting the people's lives through the government strategic policy position and policy statement. So there's a number of things that you've heard the Honorable Premier say in our budget, our policy address. So how do you start ironing those out? How do you put the necessary finances to those policies so they can be implemented once the budget is approved? Because a lot of people may not be aware that right now we're operating on a different than the former government's budget, which is also limited from the fact that we had the pandemic. So a lot of the funds were depleted in one way, shape, or form, associated with the cost of the pandemic. So it's hard to carry out your own policies when you don't have a budget to match with it. So you can't you say you want to do this exercise, but you don't have the right funding for it. So we're working on that right now. That's a lot of what we're doing, as well as the policy directions and regulations for this reopening. So obviously you were talking earlier about communication and a lot of the things we're doing behind closed doors, because up to just last night we were fixing some regs in preparation for reopening, and obviously we're going to have another press briefing. And I agree with you that we are not doing enough in respect to communicating with the public about what is the common interpretation of many of these different things, like, say, for instance, the lateral flow policy, which was created to ease many people in the community who somebody's connected to them who caught COVID. The lateral flows offers an option to say, just because somebody in your household has COVID, that doesn't mean that you have to be in isolation. And the logic of how that policy works to still be safe and allow those who are negative to still continue to operate and go to work, or kids still go to school, needs to be broken down, because you have this conundrum of persons going, oh, I don't want to break the law. And as far as I know, once I'm living with somebody with COVID, I'm not supposed to leave. And then what we have is a phone line that is bombarded with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and up to thousands of people calling, trying to figure this out, because they don't want to be on the wrong side of the law, rightfully. So we got to do a little bit more communications. But as you know, this is not my area of responsibility. But I've decided that I'm going to, me and you're going to have a little powwow separately, where I have to break this down for my own constituents, because you know that I take pride in, at the very least, remembering who I'm responsible to, and that's the people of Georgetown Central first, and everybody else greater after, right? And by all means, that sounds a little bit selfish, but it is constitutionally my major responsibility first is to the people of Georgetown Central. And I agree with you. Some people, you may be able to read a document, and sometimes, even though it's not legalese, so to speak, but it's policy-ese, if I can say something, make up a new word. So they want to make sure that they're not on the wrong side of the law. So explaining that in more common terms. But the last press conference, we were just trying to hit the major marks so the industry can be prepared for reopening, like the fact that people will be allowed to come in who can and cannot quarantine, and where we're going and when the different phases will be affected. Now, the rest of the policies that come along to assist that reopening to keep it safe, we haven't dived into those yet at a proper press briefing. So I'm actually going to be advising and talking to my team about, listen, we're going to have to allow the media some more questions too, because the media themselves are the ones who interact with the public almost every day. They'll call Sandra, I don't understand this. How you interpret that? What do you mean by this? And sometimes, as much as those questions may, sometimes those questions may be somewhat, it may be perceived as annoying because you've been through it 50 times in your head, but the public hasn't.
I just think
So
I
you
need
have to repeat it, that's all.
Here's what I'm thinking, Kenneth. I need to open up a CMR hotline.
I heard you the other day. So you can explain to people what's going on, right?
The hotline is, I'm being so tongue in cheek because the hotline already exists because everybody has the number in any event. And literally they are calling with not just questions, but even up to yesterday morning by 12:15, I had 3 people call with 3 different situations that they're asking for CMR to intervene with. So people just need help is the bottom line. And sometimes, if they're calling the flu hotline number, if they're calling the isolation number and they cannot reach them, the next logical place in everybody's brain is go to CMR because they're going to be able to reach someone, on our behalf. So I might have to start hiring out people just to answer the phones.
Well, the truth is you shouldn't have to. And I don't pull any punches. I hold myself accountable and the government accountable as well. And we are going to be improving on that in respect to the communication, because the reason why the flu hotline is so heavy is because people are not getting the communication and understanding. Sometimes that means also that, some people are not trying to find information themselves. But I recognize, and I keep on telling my colleagues, is that as much as me and you may be technologically advanced and we're up to date on social media, we know how to research in Google and find a document as once you've heard that it's released and then you'll read it for yourself. Many people don't have the time for that, right? Or the know how to go ahead and then they're scared already to try to interpret something when you're talking about law and you don't want to be caught or penalized for saying you did something wrong. So you need these kinds of conversations, and from authority figures like myself, the Premier, the Minister of Health, and the rest of the government members and public health, to reassure them that, listen, don't be afraid. We're trying to find ways to make it a little bit easier. But at the same time, make sure people understand the safety concerns. So one of the big things, and I don't want to hurt myself here, but one of the biggest things is the lateral flow availability. And I'm happy to say, and the minister will make their own announcement soon, that we have just ordered a very substantial amount of lateral flow, and the news will come out soon. And some arrived yesterday. So trying to get those lateral flows in the community as much as possible. And I would advise the public, and hoping that the private sector doesn't take advantage of the community, knowing that they need this, to overprice, because I'm quite disappointed that I saw some prices out there that were what I call unreasonable when we know what the market is, the importation market. That's the reason why the government made sure it was duty free. So I'm a bit disappointed that people are going that high up, especially when we know exactly how much you could have gotten it for. But I'm not here to dictate, but bear in mind the government is watching your price lines. So those who are selling it, we're watching, And so much so that we're now starting to look at legislation. Yeah.
Especially since they're getting the benefit of it being duty free. But Minister Bryan, I know you're obviously in work mode this morning. You've got your ministerial hat on, but I want you to take your ministerial hat off for a second.
I know I'm going to get to that. I just want to make sure that, because it's important though, even though I'm going to be talking about the constituency level. I would hate to be on here and not address some of these things, because people are like, yeah, great. But I am worried about this bigger picture, which is the reopening, and persons are out there. People are out there in quarantine.
Ask a very good point here. Magdalene says, who's responsible for dissemination of information? Is it the civil servant or is it the ministers? I'll let you answer that, Minister Bryan.
It's a collaborative approach. By all means, the civil service, it's best to hear it from your leaders. But as you can see from GIS videos and articles and press releases, that the information has been sent out. But most people have become accustomed to press conferences where they can hear the dialogue between a reporter question and the minister and respond in common terms. But the complexities of this layout takes a little bit more attention by the average person until it becomes the norm. So it is, technically speaking, the comms team within government to get this information out. So it's a combination of both. I am not here to say, well, boy, it's their fault or it's our fault. We're supposed to do this together. We just have to do more. So,
and I mean, the difficulty of, again, I don't want to take too much away from the minister's time. So we'll speak after he leaves. We'll speak about this. There are some logistical difficulties, I think, within government and how the message is eventually disseminated. So Magdalene, hold on to that question. She suggests that they should get people like Kevin Watler to help with this. We're going to talk about some of those.
Kevin and Sandra have been doing a good job already. I think you're forced to do it because people call you and you go, you don't want to say, I don't know. So you do the research yourself. But the other part to focus on too, it's just not, okay, this new piece of policy or guidelines have come out today that if you read that alone, you know everything. It's a number of different pieces of documents working all in tandem with each other. So if you're not keeping up with all the relevant rules.
I think the minister's connection dropped. Not sure what happened there, Minister. If you can jump back in, we got 323 people waiting for you. So let's read some comments while we're waiting on the minister to come back. So Rachel says, rumors are rife that the doc invested in a number of Sinopharm Chinese vaccines that he intended to prescribe. Not sure how much they would cost, but these vaccines are not as effective and have not been approved for use here in the UK or USA. It'd be helpful if he could address these rumors of a conflict of interest. Rachel goes on to say that she drove to 5 pharmacies yesterday trying to buy lateral flow tests, and most had sold out, and those who had them would only sell me 2, and they were $8 each. And of course, the stores are busy with long lines, and I was worried that all the people in the store and staff were being unnecessarily exposed to risk just being there. We need better distribution and lower pricing. So that's interesting, Rachel. I don't know where, I mean, I can't speak to the pricing because certainly it would depend on where they're getting it from, what sort of volume that they're purchasing these items and so on. I mean, obviously they are getting it duty free. So there's not that additional percentage that those individuals have to, invest in or have to spend in terms of their own costs. So I would hope that they would keep it as reasonable as possible. I mean, clearly, pharmacies are in the business of making money as well. But yeah, making it readily accessible to people would be wonderful. So keep that in mind, any businesses out there, pharmacies and other stores that are selling them. You also want to be careful of what product you're buying, because I suspect that with most things, not all lateral flow tests are created equal. And there's actually an approved list of what's approved that has been put out, I believe, by Public Health. I'll just double check that. But you want to make sure that that you're aware of what those figures and what those names are for the particular products. So just keep that in mind as well. So the minister is back. So Minister Bryan, I'm not quite sure what happened there, but welcome back.
My phone overheated because I'm outside and it was in the sun, so I had to go to the other one. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good thing about having a work phone and a personal phone.
Yeah, if it's an iPhone, they can't take much of this Caribbean heat. Trust me.
Yeah, man. I was like, what's happening? This phone isn't dead. It's like, oh.
All right, Minister, no worries.
Yeah. So let's go back to the constituency level now. So,
yes.
As I was saying to you in the earlier part, obviously you have your constituency level and your national level, and sometimes they're one and the same. So as I'm working on the national approach to the government's policies and the government's budget, I'm in fact thinking that I am assisting my constituency directly. So once my humble view is that I want to get the reopening and the budget out of the way, because I see 2022 me back into the community like I once was, where people see my face a lot more. But I'm assuming that people can understand that they wouldn't want me in the community as much, and then not focus on the responsibilities. Like say for example, the reopening, two areas that are very important for the reopening is the airport and Cayman Airways, and managing how the safety mechanisms are going to be working at the airports authority is very, very important. So the persons coming in from overseas, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds, potentially thousands of people coming in at the airport, and the commingling, how we're going to do that, what are the safety protocols. So organizing the structure of how the airport is going to go back to normal, because what we've been dealing with recently is only a couple of flights a day between here in Florida, here in Jamaica, and the UK. And in a week span, if you have 7 flights, you have a lot, 1 per day on average, and with the private jets as well that goes into the general aviation. So there's not much concern about safety, because 1 flight can do it by itself. You clean the airport, everything back to normal. But when we're going back to a reopening and you have the open skies agreement, you have to now start thinking about safety, because you have 1 flight land now, within 20 minutes you have another one. So the co-mingling, how we're going to do the reopening with the fact that persons having to apply, those who don't want to be in quarantine, the documentation, what is CBC going to be doing in respect to their checks, and all of these things that go around the organizations of CIAA. Because as much as people go, well, we don't see him as much as minister. If I left that alone and don't do it right, and then things go bad with the reopening, they're going to be like, that minister don't know what he's doing. Who is the minister in charge of CIAA or Cayman Airways? Why is there not enough flights going on? So I'm going to be held responsible for that as well. So it's a delicate balance. So what I'm saying is, my hope and plan is you have only 24 hours in a day, and hopefully at least 6 hours of that is sleep time. But throughout that process, you're managing and setting things up in a way where they can run fluently by themselves. And once I've got the ministries that I'm responsible for under full control and understanding and policy direction with all the CEOs and all the heads to say, this is your minister and your government's policy. Now flow with it. I won't have to micromanage so much. So these first 6 to 8 months are about setting the pace, and particularly for the reopening, setting the government's policy for how to reopen. And naturally, it will start to take a life of its own and start to roll continuously without me having to be there to supervise all the time. As well as me trying to deal with the budget and getting the money going. That's a very cumbersome task, by the way, more than people would ever want to understand, except for those who are and have been in the same position before, as well as civil servants who go through the budgetary process. So my expectations is to get all of that under control, get the reopening done, get that flow, areas of responsibility that I have, and get the ball rolling, that in the new year, it could be less about me micromanaging, trusting the CEOs in the various areas, trusting my chief officer, that you know exactly what I want out of this entity, out of this department, out of this government-owned company. And then the process starts to flow, which eases up time now for me to go back into the community, to see one-on-one, also feel the flavor. And I must say that social media and WhatsApp has been good to me in a way that I can still get a pulse of the people, so to speak, because people still message me. Trust me, my phone goes nuts more so now than ever, and it's sometimes difficult to keep up. I'm trying my best, but I think there's going to be more time available once we pass these 2 steps that I can be back into the community. Now, to answer your question directly, in respect to what you saw me in the picture with cutting off the limb that I was sitting on, as you said, that was the Central Scranton Community Park. And we're getting ready for what we do every Christmas, which is a seniors party and a community party. And I am happy to say that we're getting closer and closer to that stage of the Central Park is going to be a reality. I've been talking a lot with the community members, the committee members for Central Scranton Community Nonprofit, and outlining what exactly it's going to be like. But one of the key things down there that is hindering the process is the engineering for the pond. For those that may not know, Central Scranton has a pond in that park, which is the key location for water flow and drainage for the neighborhood. So it's not like we can just go in, fill it in, because otherwise you create flooding problems. So the engineering, we're trying to create a park around the pond that still allows water to flow into that pond and then alleviate the areas from a rain perspective. So in that respect, that's what's happening now. And we did some cleanup the other day, because though the park will not be ready till next year, we still need to use the park for the Christmas seniors party. So that's what you saw me cutting down some, I hate to say this, but those trees must have been there at least 75 years. There's some old poinciana trees, but they had to be removed in any light, because when we do the park, all that stuff has to go, and we will be doing some replanting of our natural native fruit trees and local trees. So that's what you saw the other day. In respect to some other community work, my team and I was hoping to keep this as a surprise, but we have what we call somewhat of a preparedness package coming up for how to protect yourself in respect to living with the new COVID. As you remember, I did some masks the last time COVID came around, and I had the ones with the GTC on it. I'm waiting on a major order now from China to give out to my community. Again, my hope was to get some lateral flows that I can purchase on my own. But I myself, I can't use the government procurement process for lateral flows. This is independent as me as a MP. So 1,500 registered voters in my area. If each one of them is just the cheapest $2, that's $3,000. But if it goes up to $4, then that's $6,000. And God forbid, if it's $10, you get the point, that's $15,000. Because my intention is to try to get each one of my constituents at least 2 lateral flows spare that they can have at home in the event they just feel a little bit funny. Because right now the government's policy is to assist schools, government departments, and public offices. But I was hoping that if we flood the market heavy enough, that the private sector will have so many, they won't be whenever there's a high demand for something, then the prices go up. But if everybody has them, then the prices drop. So the hope is that within the next month or so, that there'll be so many on island that people go, I'm not buying it for $7 from you. I can go down the road and get it for $3. And then that person goes, yeah, but I can go down there and get it for $2. So we want to flood the market, and that's why the government has made a substantial purchase, and I'll allow the minister responsible for that area to do their own announcements in respect to the amounts and all that stuff. But that is the hope for that preparedness package, and then we get those out there in the community, and an educational pamphlet to just remind you what it takes to live in the new normal. And I'm somewhat glad. If there is ever an opportunity to be happy, is that people are starting to recognize that though we have had the announcement, yes, it was 486 new COVID positives, I think the Dr. Lee said. But over the 400 mark. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I don't think my mic is working here, but as long as you can hear me, tell me you can hear me, Sandra. Sandra?
We're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, cool. So with that large amount of positives, you still have a very small percentage of persons who are in the hospital. And like Dr. Lee said yesterday, those persons who are in hospital, not all of them have to be in the hospital. They're just taking precautionary measures because the space is available. Some of those who are there might have not been there if there were not, if we were packed to the hilt in respect to persons who need the hospital. So while we got space, just in case, you know, they may be a little bit elderly and, you know, we want to take a chance, they have had heart issues and you got COVID, let's bring them in just in case. So with the fact that there's such a high number of positives, it's a good sign. There's no good thing about having a lot of positives, but there is good within it to say that there's not a lot of people getting super sick. Nobody is on a ventilator. There's one person who is receiving extra oxygen, as you heard Kevin explain so many times in his programs about the importance of keeping your oxygen level up. So you heard Dr. Lee say that, you know, they're just assisted periodically with extra oxygen just to keep the oxygen level up. So they're being monitored and given medication to temper the effects of COVID, like a super cold, so to speak, as people categorize it as. And that's a good sign, because eventually we only have 71,000 people here as the number we're working with, that even if there is continuously this flow of persons who are getting COVID, people don't talk about the people who've gotten over COVID. So 3 weeks ago, what was the number? And where are they now? And how are they doing? Because after you've gotten, be like, okay, yeah, I feel it. I know what it was like. I know the experience. Now, it was inconvenient because I was in isolation. I probably lost some work hours and all those things. And we're trying to fix those on the back end, right? So all the inconveniences that come along with it, can't go to school, kids that need to be learning from home. As we go through these problems, we're trying to fix it on the back end. And most people are focused on the front end about what could potentially happen, but nobody thinks about, yes, there is a large amount of people who've actually survived this fearful thing called COVID. And they're the ones that I would love to hear from more, to say, okay, you got it. It was scary first, right? And now you survived it, and you know what to go through. You know what the experience is like. Talk to the public, because the fear itself, and I can't believe I'm saying this, because I remember when the pandemic first started and there was this crazy person going, oh, this is all about fear. I think it was actually Denny Warren. I love him to death. He's like, the fear is what's killing us, the fear. And the truth is, like I always said, you have to be mentally prepared to get through this, right? So I want us to start looking at the positives in the reality of what we're facing, even though that is difficult in a sense, because some people still, a lady called me the other night, and I got to share this experience. She said, Kenneth, you might as well come to my house and shoot me. And I said, I was so surprised. I said, Miss, what do you mean? She says, I'm not trying to kill me. Well, I go open the door. You might as well bring a shotgun and kill me, because I'm making the whole country have virus. And I had to obviously stay calm and be diplomatic and polite about it. I said, Miss, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to deal with a very complex situation that is happening to all of us on Earth, right? Now, I know you may not 100% agree with everything that we're doing, but it's something that you've tasked me to do. The reason you voted for me is for me is to trust me to make the best decisions possible. And I had to say to her, I said, do you not trust me anymore? She says, that's not what I'm saying. I just don't know how in the hell we're going to be able to live with 400 coronavirus positives. We're all going to die. And she was, in my humble opinion, overreacting. She's a friend of mine, so I can say this. I won't say her name, but she was really panicking, and I had to calm her down and give her the realities of what's happening, and slowly got her back to a place where it's going to be okay. And I hope that that's what all of us are doing responsibly, because that's what it's going to take to get through this. And I always say, what is your other option? We have to get through it. There's no other choice. And this is what God expects of you. This is what I expect of you. This is what your parents and family and friends expect of you, to be strong through this, right? And work through it. And it is difficult. I'm not going to lie about that. It's hard, but we got to do it. And hopefully a year from now, we can look back and say, wow, we did that together as a country. We did that. And I remember when I was freaking out too, I played a part in the chaos, because I freak out some days. I don't tell everybody, but I freak out too. Oh my God, am I making the right decision? Is somebody's life going to be in line because of something I do? We all have that same human emotion, but as long as we try to focus on the positive, it makes it easier to get through it. So I've been speaking a little bit a while there, Sandra. So can you still hear me, Sandra?
Yeah, no, I can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. We can hear you. So
Okay,
no, I was saying thank you for that, because at the end of the day, I think we all deal with stresses in our lives a little bit differently. So I suppose we all have moments where we get anxious about things. And that was in fact one of the reasons why the morning show was started, because I realized during the pandemic in particular that a lot of people were getting very, very anxious, and people were asking a lot of questions. And I saw every single day people were watching the press briefings at the time with the progressive government, and then they still had a lot of questions, or they wanted to talk about things. And I had my phone even then constantly ringing off. So it occurred to me, why not just get on air? And we all sit down here for a couple hours each morning. We review what the press briefing said the day before, what the trends were, what the numbers were. I'm just going to pull you out, Minister Bryan, because it looks like you're frozen. It could be, I think you're back now. Yeah, it could be just the heat again. But so I saw that a lot of people wanted to talk. And y'all know I love to talk. And for me, one of the ways that I can control my stress is to talk about it. Right. So if you're my friend, you'll know that if we're having any sort of friendship situation, like I'm one of those people who normally, like, if you see me not wanting to talk to you and shut down at that level, that's probably not a very good sign. That probably means it's really over. Like if Sandy doesn't want to engage in conversation, it's like, ooh, we got a real problem. But when you see me wanting to talk, I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit stressed out about the situation. I'm feeling a particular way. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it and let's move on. I ran into someone yesterday at I went to Cost Lesson. My goodness, we have so many fans all over the place. I just chuckle when I see people, because yesterday the lady who's doing the checkout at Cost Less, they check your receipts. She says, I was still at the register. She says, She says, yes, honey child. And I knew she was talking about me, so I just laughed when I heard her say that. And then the little guy, he's been there for years. He walked up to me and he said, Miss Sandy, you doing okay? We have some nice Cayman masks. And I was like, I don't have a shortage of masks, but I said, let me buy a few because I'm actually going to give those away to people who may not have access to a mask. And they've got the beautiful Cayman flag and really representing love of our country. Yeah. But, my thing is communication. I'm all about, let's talk about it. If we feel a little bit stressed about a situation, let's talk about it. But I think different people react differently. So for some people, how they deal with stress is they internalize it. And they shut down and they don't want to, but going back to the Cost You Less story, the guy was having a good laugh because he's like, boy, Miss Sandra, me rate you because, boy, you just tell them about their backside. And I said, yeah, well, for me, that's how I deal with stress. So you stressing me out, I'm going to tell you about your behind and we're going to just keep it moving, right? No hard feelings, because once I tell you off, like I say, I'm done. Done and dusted and done. Let's keep it moving. But
I can attest to that. That's true.
And it's like don't harbor resentment or anger or whatever. Sometimes you just got to hug it out after you've talked about it, and you just keep it moving. So everyone relates to stress differently. And one of the things that we've been purposely doing on CMR, every time we hear about East End primary, somebody called me and said, Miss Sandra, you're not reporting on East End primary. What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I hadn't heard anything, but what's going on? Everybody got COVID. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Well, we'll add them to the long list of schools, because right now it's like all the schools have it. The schools that don't have it is like this many. It's like the majority of the schools have cases. And we're trying to normalize the fact that everybody's going to get COVID. Every school has it. All the kids are getting it. And that's fine. That's not what you need to stress about. So we hyper report on it in the sense that as soon as we hear it, we're like, yep, this school has it, this business has it, da 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 da. It's not to make you fearful, it's to make you see, wow, this thing literally is everywhere. You've got people at the grocery store. I heard yesterday 3 or 4 people at Hurley's. You've got people at Progressives. You've got people all over the place. And that's why you've got to be vigilant, social distance where you can, wear your mask where you can, wash your hands, sanitize when you can't wash them. You know, these are the things that you need to do to create a personal bubble around yourself. But it also, I think, recognizing that it's everywhere, hopefully will help to reduce your stress level, because you're like, this is going to be this is not going to be, this is the new normal. So we just get on with it at the end of the day. But Minister, I want to double back, because you've been busy on your constituency. One of the sort of things that I think ministers have always done, and I say that this is a little bit of a mistake on the part of ministers. A lot of times they do a great job as a minister, running the country, looking at these higher level policy initiatives, going to work every day in the glass house, doing all those things. But if you're not letting people know at the constituency level what it is that you're doing, you can really lose the plot, right? So
I agree with you.
And I have seen you out there busy. So I'm going to remind you, because you keep forgetting some of the stuff that you've been doing over the last couple months. During, what was the name of the storm that we had the other day? Was it Grace?
Oh, Grace, yeah.
Yeah, she was not very graceful at all. She toppled down a lot of trees and a whole bunch of stuff. And I always remember I was down in, it was in Palmdale. I forget the name of this road now. But I was in that area off of Crew Road. I was actually going to check on one of my elderly customers because he had requested me to come and see him. And as I'm in the area, I see you coming through the neighborhood with a truckload full of people with rakes and chainsaws and, you know, workmen and women to go and help clean up neighborhoods. And you kind of, I think, were taken aback by seeing me. You're like, what are you doing down in here? So, Kenneth, you've been very, very busy. Tell us a little bit about the post-storm cleanup and what that involved, and you know, what you were able to get done for some residents who were not able to assist themselves.
Well, Sandra, I'm a bit, I don't know how to say, not conflicted, but I really try not to talk about much of the things I do so much, because I don't think I've done enough. The honest truth is that myself and my committee are concerned that I am not balancing the responsibility of my new role and my commitment to my people. I know that one of the things out there that most people may agree to is that I was very visible, I was very accessible, and I was always in my community. And that's changed drastically, right? And I'm only going to ask so much because I do not think I've done enough in my community. I'm a little bit disappointed in myself, but I realize that there's only 24 hours in a day. And what I'm not going to give them is this. They're not going to say that I failed as a minister, because I know there's an expectation out there that, oh, this little Georgetown boy thought that he can do all this. Watch when he failed. That's not going to happen. So those who want me to fail in that respect, I'm going to be the best minister of tourism ever. So I put that title there for myself. But with that, that means I have to be on top of everything that I have responsibility for. Because I know many of them are waiting for me to fail, but you're going to be waiting a long time. But with that being said, that take away a lot of my time from what I was known for. So I'm not happy about that. So what I was trying to explain to you before was trying to get the ball rolling where I like it, so I can say, all right, I don't have to micromanage anymore and get bad, because I am not happy. Some of my peeps, my team say, Ken, or you know, you need to, I know you got a serious role, but you got to get back out here. And I can't say to the country that we're not ready for the reopening. I can't say that we don't have things ready to keep us safe. So there is a bit of sacrifice. And I honestly today, true Sandra, I am begging my people of Georgetown Central, just please understand with me until we get this reopening done and until the budget is passed. I promise you 2022 is not going to be like 2021, because it is not easy. And I'm not here complaining, but I just want you to understand the reality. Brand new minister, first time minister, need to understand the responsibilities. have a higher expectations of people who want me to fail. So I have to be better than everybody else for a ministry that is in its most difficult time ever. The Ministry of Tourism and the industry tourism has ever faced. But I know if I get through this, that there is no more doubting whether Kenneth can do it or not. So that's why my commitment is so hard there, right?
Yes. And what I've just heard you express, Kenneth, just to kind of summarize and make sure that I'm understanding your feelings about the situation, is that it's a very stressful time for you as an individual in your professional capacity as a representative of the people as well, because this is now a balancing act between, you know, the leadership position that you now hold as Minister of Tourism and Transport and you know, being a representative for the people of Georgetown Central, because those people of Georgetown Central often forget that, wow, Kenneth is now a minister and he has all this responsibility. He's got caucus meetings, he's got cabinet meetings, he's got, you know, all these other things that he needs to focus on. But when they pick up the phone, they still want you to be answering their phone call. They're like, Kenneth, I'm here. And that's
and I'm not changing that. I'm not changing that expectation because I'm not here to complain. I ain't complaining about it because it's what I signed up for and I'm happy to deal with it. All I'm asking for is a little grace. Not grace to storm, but a little period because yes, I that's why I even said to my chief officers, like, listen, I hope you're ready because after we get these things in place and flowing the way I want to, I have to get back out to my people, right? And then set that balance. So for right now, if I can measure it, over here is the ministry level and my people and my community work, not my people, my community work, because both of these things represent my people, but the attention it seeks is different. So here is ministry level, getting the borders open, the budget's ready for the next 2 years, and being safe is here. My community work is down here compared to where it used to be before. So after those major two things are done, I want to balance that back onto here so I can give an equal split of representation to the people. I don't think I'll ever be able to give a full 100 of what I used to do because it was just literally I had more time. I didn't have the responsibilities of being in charge of Cayman Airways, a whole multi-million-dollar airline, or the port is another multi-million-dollar agency and authority, or CIA, a multi-million-dollar agency, because many of the things that I have in my strategic plans for tourism is going to be huge, and it's going to take a lot of focus to do that. But that's still not an excuse. I want to make this clear to my people that I represent. I am not making any excuses. I just want you to understand that allow me a little time to balance that because I refuse to fail. I am not going to fail. I don't accept that because if failure is not an option in my team GTC, we don't fail. We keep on going. So I only want to say it to just get people to understand. And I can promise you in the new year, there will be a lot more attention to that. Yes, we are doing some community work, not enough to scream about, not enough to get credit for. I will be back with many of those things to say, watch me, I did this, I did that, I did this, and I did that. I'm doing what right now is almost the bare minimum, and I expect a lot more from me. But there's only 24 hours in a day, and I'm hoping that next year we can have 28 hours in a day, so I can put a little bit more in my constituency.
Well, when you figure out, Kenneth, how to squeeze more hours out of a day, please let me know because that's I
gotta figure it out.
Formula.
Sandra, no is not an option. We're gonna figure it out. Even if we have to make up 29 hours, we're gonna make it up. That means less sleep or something, but it gotta work.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to clone ourselves because I tell you what, you can only cut back on sleep so much before you even start to feel that. Because yesterday was one of those days for me. I really skimped on sleep the night before. And like last night at 10 o'clock, I was sitting on the sofa. I was supposed to be listening to something on the iPad. And I was like fast asleep. So, you know, I end up getting up and by 11:30, I was in bed trying to get a few Z's. But yeah, I mean, these are, I'm glad you're sharing this human side of being a representative, Kenneth, because, you know, this is the reality of it. I know sometimes when you get elected to public office, people expect miracles of you. They want to put you on a pedestal. And one of the most important things for me is trying to what I call manage expectations. And I do this every single day. So there are people who call me and they'll say, oh, well, I know CMR can do this. I mean, I swear to you, they say, oh, I've been to the police and they can't help me. They're no good. I tell them I go in CMR, you know, and there's certain things that I can and can't do. And so when someone tells me about a situation, I think, right, what I can do is give you advice about how best to handle this. And if it's not something that I feel like I could advance in any way for you, I'm going to tell you that, because I don't want you to believe I can deliver and I can do something when I really can't. So I think what you have just said, to package it very, very nicely, is you have just, informed the people who are listening to the program, still well over 200 people, that you're asking them to allow you to manage their expectations of what you can and can't do. Because yes, you're only one person. Yes, there's only 24 hours in a day, and you are dealing with a very difficult situation as it relates to the handling of the pandemic, tourism and transport, like you said, two very, very big areas that have, a direct hands-on for the reopening process and trying to get us through the entire COVID situation. So I think that we get you, we understand. Let's take a few viewer comments. So Roderick says, thank you, Kenneth Bryan, well said. Bless you. Magdalene says, I pray for the PACT government each day for wisdom and stick togetherness. Joy says,
thank you so much for that.
Yes, for sure. Miranda says, wonderful, Kenneth. Never forget your people. Blessings on you. Miss Charlene is sending some positivity your way as well. She says, grace period and patience. Absolutely. We're all in every constituency needs to exercise this at times. Very different as opposed to the previous government timeframes. Baliki is also here. He says, always good to see the Honorable Bryan on your show. Sandy, he's an eloquent spokesman for Georgetown Central and the whole of the Cayman Islands.
Thank you, Baliki.
Yes, Nathina is asking if you have the Delta virus here. Girl, where have you been? You have not been paying attention. Delta virus been here a long time. And in fact, not only is it here, but it looks like every single case that because they're doing like a sampling of the positives, pretty much it's 100% of all the sampling that they're doing is the Delta virus. So you could rest assured that that's now accounting for, if not all, probably 99% of the coronavirus infections. Nathina, that reminds me though, a lot of you may still be missing these COVID Spotlight series. So I want to invite you folks every single Tuesday and Thursday. If you miss them, they're still on YouTube. They're on Facebook. Just go to the page. We actually have it created on Facebook as a playlist. So you can go in that specific section and see all the videos that we've been doing there. And you'd be surprised how much information is available there for you. So Charlene says continuous delegation and relevant constituencies, committees, and offices may be an immediate fix, just suggesting. So yeah, you know what? Daisy says we got your back, KB, with the yellow heart. Remember, that was his color.
I love you, Daisy. That's one of my committee members. She's amazing. She's my damn piece. She got my back.
That beautiful yellow gold. But yes, folks, I mean, knowing how to, Charlene makes a good point too, knowing how to delegate is really, really important. People
I must say, have a problem with that. Like, can I say something there? And I guess I like to vent to the public because then I get feedback, right? So I'll vent here. I have a problem with that. I'm always the person I like to do things myself because if you want something done right, you do it yourself, right? And I have a problem with that. My team tells me about it all the time. Even my office manager says that, Kenneth, just let me deal with it. And I'm like, no, but you don't understand how my people operate with this and operate with that. And there's a certain expectation. So I do have to be better at delegating. And I want my community to know this, that you will start to see people who are out there representing me, right? Embrace them like you would embrace me, because they're going to now be speaking on my behalf and acting on my behalf with a lot of things. Like, the other day somebody said, listen, Ken, something's happening with the roof. I need you to come down and look at it. And I need to be able to send somebody down there and say, listen, I'm sending somebody, and be able to speak to them, because I'm not going to have people intervening with your personal issues that I don't trust. So if you trust me, you got to trust my agents, so to speak, in that respect, because that's where I have a problem with delegation, because I can't get the truth. I'll give you an example. I have constituency clinic and I have 2 people in the office now, and people have issues. And I'm like, listen, I can deal with those issues straight from the government building. Just tell my people what the problem is, and I can start actioning things. And they don't want to speak to my agents. And I understand because we built a bond and a relationship from representative to constituent. So they only want to talk to me. But then what that means is that I have to come away from the office and hear the concern. So it's almost like a timed event as well. And I that's where the hours I need more of, where fine, if you don't want to talk to anybody else, you only want to talk to me. I get that, but it could be easier and I can help more people. If you just give me the problem, I'll try to fix it. I don't have to see you face to face. But again, expectations, and I'm not going to cry about it. I like the fact that people want to see me because that means they love me. That means they want me to be the one to deal with it. But that means just less time for more other people. So many people have to be like, I can't do it now. I already have a backed up of 2 weeks of people to see. And then worst case scenario, I have a set of appointments to see people. Then boom, there's another major meeting that we have to deal with for a policy decision to address this outbreak in the schools. And I say, oh, I'm sorry, I got to cancel those meetings because I'm expected to be there next to the premier to address these policy decisions. Yeah. So it's not easy.
It's a lot. It's a lot for sure. Yeah. Claudia says, so good to see the MP Kenneth Bryan praying for wisdom for all of our government members. Louise says, I must say that Mr. Bryan has to be one of the most patient persons out there. Claudia also says, I'd also be happy to provide feedback as to my recent experience coming to the island. I'd be happy to speak or email my comments. Yes, send it across, because I think this is exactly how people will learn, especially public health and Travel Cayman and these other entities. This is how they will learn, where there's some gaps in the system and where they need to address specific things. So Aliano says, Cayman wise up and stay active. MP Bryan just needs to see more effective progression in solving the Caymanian people's problem who work in tourism, reopen the country safely and get travel time act together, because we don't need more lockdown, and here's to the 20th. So he's excited about the 20th
Can I use this opportunity to say something before you go into the next comment? And I apologize, Emma. One thing I want to say, and I'm assuming that there's some industry stakeholders watching this program, and their agents will get the information back, because they always are watching when I speak now. And I'm going to be ever so delicate with this. The industry which I've been given the constitutional responsibility for is tourism. There's many partners, business owners out there that I've met and built relationships over the last 6 months with. I respect you. I will stand for this industry to make it robust and strong again. But one thing I'm not going to compromise on is the treatment of my people within the workplace and within this service to them. And unfortunately, I've already started to get reports that now that the reopening is here, people who want to do staycations are being turned away. The locals are being turned away. And I want to remind the stakeholders, the people of the Cayman Islands were there for you when things were bad. We came to your hotels, we came to your restaurants, we spent our money, we did a lot of staycations when you were asking us to do that. Don't start to treat our people differently now, because then you're going to turn me into a minister I don't want to be. Right? I'm trying to be the best diplomatic leader I can be, knowing my background and where I come from, but I will not take on or accept ill treatment of my people in respect to those types of things. The other part is in respect to labor. Now, before we had a reopening on October 14th, a lot of things were going positive. Stakeholders were on board about hiring Caymanians. The other day, and I'm going to send you this by WhatsApp, Sandra, so you can bring it up. The other day, I was perusing through Facebook, and I had, and by all means, this is not anti-foreigner. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. But you had persons who were here on work permit, working in the industry, posting, saying stuff like, oh, the border is about to reopen. Now is the time to apply. Link me up and I can get you, put in a good word for you. Right? And I had to comment on it. And I said to the person, I said, why don't you think about hiring some Caymanians? And I said it so politely because I don't, if I say anything wrong, all the opposition and everybody who wants to kill Kenneth Bryan will come eat me for how I say it. Not the message, but how I said the message, right? Please, 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 if you want a nice minister to work with for the next 3.5 years in tourism, treat my people right. I don't want to be the rowdy Kenneth that you know that I can be. I am not going to stand for my people not being treated right. We spend close to $6 million every year, every month on helping Caymanians stay afloat. I worked really, really hard trying to find a safe way to reopen this country on behalf of industry when many others want us to keep closed. We're opening the industry so you can survive. You can make money in your business, but it's not going to be at the expense of my people. So please, I'm begging you, be conscious, be moral, know what your obligation is to this country, right? Is to make sure the people that is a part of it survive first before everybody else. We are here. We are very welcoming people. We're willing to share. Sometimes it's to our own detriment, right? But I'm not going to sit aside as Minister of Tourism, and my good friend, the Deputy Premier, now acting Premier, Christopher Saunders, shares this sentiment with me. When it comes to labor, when it comes to the tourism industry, when jobs are starting to become relevant, look for Caymanians first. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. Look for Caymanians first. We're not going to compromise with this area, and I don't want to take strong positions in respect to immigration matters and create a difficulty for your business to run. But we're not going to go back to the old system where everybody else gets a job first before my people. I'll leave it there before I say anything silly, but I just want to send that message out because it's not one that I'm willing to compromise on. So you can go to the next message now.
Thank you so much. And just to that point briefly, there is a video that we'll talk about another day from, I think it's the MP for Bermuda. She's a female MP, and she puts out some very positive message. And listen, the woman don't cut no cheese when she's talking, you know, she just talk the thing straight and she tells you how it is. And she was recently talking about banks in her country and sending a very stern warning to them about if you can't get your act together, you're going to force the government to have to implement measures that then you're going to sit back and complain about. So, you know, sometimes the government has to flex its muscles when private sector isn't doing the right thing by the people. And nobody wants over-regulation, but there's certain times when regulation is required. And I'm always perplexed. I know exactly what post you're talking about because a lot of people sent it to me. I'm always extremely perplexed when I see people, especially foreign nationals. This is a little bit, this is like rubbing salt in the wound, right? It's a little bit more insulting. Advertising positions overseas. All my friends must come. The Cayman Islands has so many jobs, but yet the Cayman Islands has tons of people who are unemployed, who are willing to work, hardworking people, and they still can't get an opportunity. There's something wrong with that. When somehow the foreign workers feel like they can promote their agenda and their friends can come into the jurisdiction so easily.
Sandra, please allow me, since I'm venting today, allow me to vent the reality of this as well, right? So here's the thing that is happening to me, folks. Obviously, my job is to facilitate for business owners. You have the big people who own these companies, right? These establishments, and they want a minister who's going to support them. And I go, oh, listen, I want you to support, because if you're successful, the government is successful. We make the trickle down economic taxes for our government. So I'm here to support you, right? But then you tell me a model for your success is based on not having Caymanians. That can't work. And I'm trying to keep this juggling act of smiling and waving and genuinely enjoying some of the relationships, because not everybody falls in this realm. But then you have some industry players who try to play this trick game, and I'm going, listen, don't do that, because all you're going to do is piss me off, and then I'm going to talk to my team and say they're not operating right. Let's take a harder approach. Let's take the moral road about this. If Caymanians don't eat, if Caymanians can't work, then you have persons having to think about doing wrong things to survive. Then that trickles back to your business. When somebody can't eat and then they say, you know what, my daughter is hungry, I'm going to do something stupid on West Bay Road, then potentially to be one of your customers, and then it trickles down to the tourism product. And I don't think that sometimes they understand that when the people of the nation does well, your business naturally does well as well. And it really bothers me, and I try to get them to understand the dynamics of that. And I almost sometimes want to drag them into our communities and see the difficulty that our people are faced with and how hard that is to then see non-Caymanians hired. It would drive anybody insane. It would literally drive me insane. If I'm at home, I can't eat, My kids are crying. I'm depending on social services that is already bombarded with help. And then our country is, in some people's perspective, opening things up to be unsafe for what a non-national to get the job. Are you mad? That would drive a Caymanian crazy. And I go, what are you trying to do? Do you not think that the people are sacrificing enough for your entity to make money? And granted, much of these entities are Caymanian connected ownerships as well. So there's a level of the Caymanian ownership to recognize that. And sometimes success takes you away from your community of which you became, that you were born into and you were part of. And that's why I go, you know what, Sandra, I don't want the ministerial honorable Kenneth Bryan nonsense, because that takes you in a cloud that when you're up there, you can't see down here. And I refuse to accept it. I don't want it, because then it takes me away from my perspective. And I just hope that they understand this is the narrative that the Minister of Tourism is coming from. So don't expect the conversation to be any different. And please, to avoid difficulty in this relationship, as the person who represents industry in Cayman and the people of the country in respect to tourism, come prepared with that kind of mindset. Because if you don't, it's going to be a difficult 3.5 years. And I know that sounds worrying maybe for some industry players, but that's what my people sent me here to do. And it could be an easy relationship. As long as you do your part, we're good. We're good if you do your part.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll stop again.
All right. So Emma says, I always admire his dedication and hardworking. Ain't nobody about how much he care. Not only do his constituents in Cayman's Island, nobody doubts how much you care. I'm sorry, Kenneth, but you're amazing. And thank God, not a politician, but a representative of the people. Great job, my brother. Nathaniel says, Lady Sandy, it's frustrating on the stupid decisions being made by a current government. I had to do a timeout and listening on the decisions being made. So maybe, Nathina, you could be a little bit more specific. I'm not sure what decisions you're referring to, but we could certainly address them if we knew exactly what decisions you're referring to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to hear those comments too, right? If people are frustrated,
we just need a little more detail, because I
want to know what. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can fix them. We're not expecting. Sorry.
Sorry, I bless you. So Mikla says, I'm praying for you, Kenneth. You got this. Roderick said, let's go. # beast mode. Sarah says, say it louder, Minister Bryan. Carolina has a question. She says, why is the minister's focus not one to create systems that are efficient, relevant, accountable, and transparent, where persons can be empowered to access services directly and with dignity, instead of having to rely on MPs to do this for them? That has been the status quo in Cayman, reliance on politicians for things that need to be independent of political interference. Create systems that will outlive you and will improve people's lives without the need for a go-between. That would be revolutionary, I think, is what the rest of that said.
Well, I agree with her wholeheartedly. I mean, the less people depended on me, the more freedom I have to do other things, right? So I'm not going to dispute that. But you don't expect systems that have been flawed for decades to be overhauled overnight. And they're not even if you create a different system, it's human behavior and expectations and delivery, right? So I'm not here to call out civil servants, but they have a role in the delivery of those services as well. So you want a fresh new approach to things. But if somebody's been doing something for 30 years, it becomes difficult. And then you try to soften the discussion, guys. We're going in a different direction. We want to try different things. And you got to get, just like employees, you come in, you buy a new company and you go in and they're accustomed to doing things the old way. And you say, listen, slowly but surely, you got to maneuver them. It's either one, they get out of the way and they're no longer with the company, or you try to transition yourself. And it's not an easy task. I 100% agree with her. I don't want people depending directly on me. That's not how a system is supposed to be. Funny that you say that. I was just thinking yesterday, a good constituent of mine I love very dearly. And I've been helping her from my 2013 election when I first got in. And I said to myself, it's 2021 and I'm still helping her. That means that we have failed. And I say we, meaning me, her, and the system have failed because she's still reaching out for help. That means she has not progressed up the ladder where the dependability, either on me, on the state, it hasn't worked for her. So who have failed? Did she fail in respect to not doing enough for herself? Did I fail by not assisting a path for her? Did the system fail by not assisting her enough to get somewhere where she's depending on herself? There's a lot of failings, and that's what elected members are about, is finding solutions. But no, I'm not going to lie and sit here and pretend that all solutions, we're going to fix every single one of them. I'm going to try my hardest, but some of them take a lot longer, and some of them, some of the problems that we have are not only by policy or legislation, by us as a community in our expectations, some self-reflection as well. So she's right. I hope that one day that we never have to have that dependability. But you always, sadly, every state, every country you have a group of people who have fallen behind, who end up depending on that. And what we try to do is continue to work at it and bring it down every year. But as every year that passes, there's another group of people who unfortunately find themselves stuck in the rut in the system, and it becomes their expectation. So while you're trying to deplete the numbers of persons having to be in that dependability state, they have more people who are adding to it. So it's a management exercise.
To Carolina's point, is because that has been the legacy that some politicians who've been in there a very long time have created. It is very difficult to, again, I'll use this term, manage people's expectations. And so they think, I was saying this to someone the other day, I said, they had messaged the premier and they're like, oh, he hasn't responded. And I said, do you know that in most countries in the world, you would never have access to the premier on WhatsApp? You wouldn't be able to just call him and expect a response for the leader of that country. I said, Cayman is in such a unique and different position, partly because of our size, because of our small size, and partly because there has been this history of people thinking that, the leadership of the country, rightfully or wrongfully, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but this expectation has developed that person is there for everything that's going on in my life. So if I'm having marital problems, I want to, poor Kenneth, his phone must have overheated again. If I'm having marital problems, I want to reach out to the premier to talk about how to help me fix my marriage and fix the fact that, you got a husband runner. It's just, to me, it is a little bit mind-boggling, the things that people expect their MPs to get involved in. So even when people are like, oh, I need a job, I'm going to call my representative. I'm like, what are you calling your representative for? Well, I need a civil servant job. I'm like, I don't know what previous government told you that was the way that it worked, but MPs are not supposed to get involved in the hiring and firing of civil servants. So they can give you some general guidance about maybe how to apply for positions, but they're not supposed to be there interfering with that process. I said the head of the civil service is Mr. Frans Manderson, not Mr. Kenneth Bryan, not the premier, Mr. Wayne Panton. And so many people don't get that because, well, I've heard stories that this one has gotten a job, through the previous government. I said, well, that's the problem. That's why we are where we are, because there's been too much in the way of favoritisms and interference with the system to work in a fair and unbiased manner. So
yeah, Sandra, you hit the nail on the head with some expectations. But here's a question. I challenged myself. I said, if you can't even get a job for your people, then how successful can you be? And this is why it's frustrating for me in respect to working with industry, because you don't have the authority to say, hire this person. It's not constitutionally our responsibility, as you highlighted just now. But our job is to create an atmosphere of availability for people to get work. And when industry does not play their part, then it makes the expectations on you to provide work for your people harder. This is the part that the industry stakeholders don't understand. I'd be like, listen, dude, if you don't provide work for my people, then you're causing me to fail. So I am being a little bit selfish here as well. Forget about the moral part that you're supposed to play. Even if you don't want to do it to do the right thing, now you got to do it because you're putting me in jeopardy of not providing an environment for my people to succeed in. So I look at it from many different angles, but you're right. There is an expectation that we can get jobs for persons, particularly in the civil service, And actually, it's against the code of conduct. We cannot interfere. The sole hiring and firing of civil servants and public servants falls under the governor, which is delegated then now to the deputy governor. You know, so. But by all means, I'm going to make a recommendation. They can't stop me. That's not illegal to make a recommendation, because there's a lot of people that I think out there can offer the civil service great as a good asset to improve the civil service.
Right.
So I'm not going to stop from doing that.
I want to ask you, Kenneth, about a job situation, because just yesterday someone said this to me. Now, I hadn't seen this because I don't know where government is advertising their jobs, but I think they said it might have been in print media, but of course I don't read print media. So this person said that there's a job being advertised for your ministry where you're looking for, I think it's a PA. I'm assuming in the Ministry of Tourism. I don't know if it's the Ministry or Department of Tourism. They weren't really clear, but it falls under your responsibility. And they were like, why is Kenneth advertising this job that requires all these degrees, which he knows that Caymanians don't have? How would you address a comment like that?
Well, first off, I'm not the one that put the ad out. I have no authority in respect to that. The HR and civil service is responsible for that. And believe it or not, I was not too happy that they put which ministry it was in respect to the you're talking about my PA's position.
Yeah, I guess I haven't seen the ad. So yeah, this is what the person said.
So I have no say about what qualifications is necessary and what the job will entail. I can't get involved in that. I have no say over it. And then once I saw the ad, somebody sent me the ad and said, Kenneth, I'm going to apply for this job. And I said, okay, great. I wish you all the success in it. But the person said, you can help me out. I said, well, I don't have any say over it. So there's an expectation now that I can dictate who it is that is hired, and I can't. And how they did it, because I said to a particular civil servant, I said, I wish they didn't put the Ministry of Tourism. I wish they had just said, you know, a ministry, a PA for a minister, without saying which one, because now, unfortunately, I guess I can understand where they're coming from, but the people have messaged me and said, Kenneth, I want to apply for this job. Can you hook me up? And how do you say, listen, I can't help you? How do you
just like how you just said it? That's how you say it.
I know, but nobody wants.
I don't write job descriptions. There's an HR manager. Normally, there's a senior HR manager, and they may have assistants. They will accept applications through the government portal. You need to go on there. You'll see all the requirements for the position. If you think you meet some or most of the requirements, then you submit your application. You will no doubt be hundreds of people who apply for the job. And that is a situation that's separate and apart from me. And I cannot interfere with the hiring or firing of civil servants. This has got to be a message, I think, that this PACT government is committed to, because for so long, people have had this perception, whether it's right or wrong, that a minister, a government official, an MP can somehow assist them in getting a job. And if that isn't the case, just put the truth out there, just like I said.
I don't know if it's as cold cut as that, because as I said before, I'm going to do everything I can to try to assist them getting a job. I don't have the final authority to override or to say that this person has to get it. But for example, if somebody was applying for a job in DEH, right? And they said, Kenneth, write me a reference. I'm going to write him a reference, because it's a person that I don't write references for people I don't think are capable, because my name is the only thing I have. So if I think somebody's prepared to do the job, I'm going to say, I trust this individual. I've seen their work ethic before, blah, 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 in the reference, right? Whether that takes any weight in respect to the hiring is another thing altogether. But I am not going to not just say, okay, I can't assist. So I won't say to people, no, I can't do anything. I'll say I can do everything I possibly can within my power. But remember, I do not have the final say. That I will do. But now that's civil service. Now there's the other part of things, which is the private sector. I mean, at the end of the day, I give you an example. All of these, boy, I hope I don't go too far today, but all these people call and go, oh, hey, minister, how you doing? Can we have lunch? I want to sit down and talk to you about something. I'd be like, funny, you didn't want to have lunch with me last year, but okay, let's have some lunch, right? And then they obviously, rightfully so, you make networking and you build relationships. to help assist with the growth of the economy, right, and businesses. But then in return, I go, listen, hey, you wanted assistance on guidance on how to go about this. What's the government policy on that? Hey, by the way, John, I have a young lady who named Miss Susan. She's just got out of school. She's about 19. She's been working a little after school job for 2 years. Can you give her a chance at the workplace? Now, I'm going to have to use my leverage as much as I possibly can to assist my people because I have no other mechanism. And I'm not going to say no. I refuse to accept that I can't. That's not within my makeup. So whatever it takes within the law, of course, to try to assist my people, I'm going to do that. That means whether I'm going to call up Mr. John, the CEO of that company, and say, John, I need a favor, man. I need you to help my people, bro. I need you to give this girl a chance. Now, she has to carry herself the rest of the way from there. But I got to fight for those chances. Now, I wish I had the authority to say that Cayman is hired, that Cayman is hired, that Cayman is hired, but it's not that way. So I use whatever mechanisms I have outside of that to do it, and I'm not ashamed to say that.
Okay, all right. We do have a direct question here from Miss Lily. She's asking about the money the government approved to assist people of the community to repair their roofs after Storm Grace. Why do they ask us to submit the application and quote to our MPs, and then they're ignoring it? I really need to know. So I didn't know that there was an actual, this was a program that was set up, or?
Yes. So basically how it works is you have to apply to, there's a certain form and you apply, and it's through the NAU, but it's not under the needs assessment unit itself. It's under a housing repair program. So you know how they used to help assist people who have houses that are in bad shape. They started a part 2 to that that's specific to grace effects, and it has a limited amount. Now this falls under Minister Andre E. Banks for the social welfare ministry, and I know that he's working on it because they've already announced 30 homes that they're dealing with. And as far as my last communication with him about this subject, this expected to do another batch of homes this week. Now, sadly, like most things in the civil service, it takes a while and it's not easy, particularly for the last 2 days because the rain was so heavy. And I've had some of my people in my constituency who've made the application and still hasn't been gotten to now. And they call me up and say, Kenneth, what's happening with the housing repair, man? My house is leaking. They'll send me pictures of my roof leaking. And I am at the mercy of the speed of the persons responsible for that program. Because what if I went down there and said, no, I'm minister, get this one done right away? Then that's political interference. And that's when they say corruption happens. So we have to stand back and hope that the system that is in place operates efficiently and quick enough that the people get their problems solved within the expectations of what they have. And it was so bad that one time I got to the point where there's this situation was so rough that the estimated cost to fix the house was about $4,000. And though I know I couldn't afford that, I was tempted to say, you know what, I can't wait anymore. And so I have no choice. Either I pay for it myself or I wait on the system to do what it's expected to do without me getting involved as a minister. Because if I go down there and say, listen, you fix this one first, put this one first in line, then they'll accuse us of tampering like many other governments have done. But this is the challenge that we make because I love everybody. I love all my people. And I think all of my people are supposed to be getting help right now. But unfortunately, the system doesn't operate that way. There's going to be somebody who's first and there's going to be somebody who's last. And most likely the person who's last is the one who's going to suffer the longest. And how do you talk to somebody and say, I know, please wait a little bit longer when water is dripping from their roof and their children are sleeping in the room? It's hard. It's not easy. And sometimes my wife, I know she's going to kill me because I spend too much money because I can't wait on the system to do it fast enough. But we're juggling a lot of balls at the same time. You know what? I don't want to talk about the reasons why we can't do things anymore because it's starting to sound like I'm making excuses. We just got to do it faster. Get it moving quickly. And if there's any civil service power heads listening, I want you to understand this is what we face from our people every day. So the quicker you work is a better reflection on us as a government. So we're dependent a lot on the people that we manage as ministers, and their success is our success. And if they fail, then we will be the ones who are getting the brunt of the criticisms in respect to whether you did it right or how quickly you got it done. So it is a difficult task. I'll just talk to my minister and say, Minister, we got to roll a little bit quicker, man. Anything we can do, and do we need more assistance or whatever? Because there is a lot of people. Up to last night, we were dealing with the new regs up till about 8 o'clock last night in the cabinet room. And I had people calling, and I put it on speaker for everybody here. I say, you see, guys, people are upset because it's rained recently. It's okay if it wasn't raining. I don't think so many people would be upset, because then you don't see and feel the pain. But particularly now, because a lot of the applications for that grant is for people whose roofs are leaking as a result of grace. And when it wasn't raining, you see the calls don't come in as much. As soon as the rain starts, the phone just keeps on going, and every one of us get the call. But we're dependent on the system that is created with those who are in charge of getting out to the people, getting the quotes, getting the contractors selected, and doing one. So they're trying to, there's only so many people who can do it. So they're doing 30 houses at one time, and then they'll do another batch. But while the other 100 people who are waiting, they're going to continue to call, because the number one, like what Bob Marley said, everybody's issue is the greatest. I can't remember how he said it, but basically everybody's problem is the biggest problem for them.
To them,
so
yeah.
I broke my toe. Oh my God, you got to help me with my toe. And another person called me and said, I have cancer that's going to kill me. To the person who broke their toe, their problem is bigger than the cancer. But when you put it in perspective, everybody burden is the heaviest, is what Bob Marley said. I think that's the quote. So anyway, I'll leave it there. I got to go. I have a meeting in 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to be late for it.
I know we went a little bit into overtime, but we appreciate you coming on the program. Lots of comments. Troy says tourism hasn't been taking out work permits over the past 20 months. Every industry in the Cayman Islands struggles to recruit Caymanians. There are many reasons for this. Any smart business leader would recruit Caymanians first. Indira says, keep praying for this government. Your mom said hi, by the way. She was listening to the program as well. Colleen says, the future premier of the Cayman Islands. You go, brother. Roderick. I don't know what that comment was about, Roderick. And of course, Charlene reminds us that the reasons that this government was elected, because they had promised to put Caymanians first and foremost going forward, end quote. All right. So Kenneth, thank you so much for joining the program. Don't be a stranger. Every single Wednesday, folks, is called Impact Wednesday for a reason, because the PACT government is able to come onto the program, highlight. The focus really is what they're doing in their constituencies. But as the minister pointed out today, sometimes it's difficult to kind of separate the two. But, we really want to know, what are they doing at the ground level within their respective districts. We've already had Ms. Catherine Wilkes on. She was the first one to come on. We've had Sabrina Turner. We've had, the premier came on, but I don't think he really talked about his constituency stuff. So we're going to hear from him again very, very soon. We have also had, who else has been on? But anyway, every single Wednesday, folks, I know Ms. Heather was meant to come on, but she had some technical difficulties. So she will no doubt be joining us again. So don't be a stranger, PAC members. Every single Wednesday, folks, Impact Wednesday. Mr. Bryan, I even forgot to play your intro video to you coming on to the program.
Oh, I didn't know how to intro video.
Oh, yes, honey child. We've been doing you right.
I want you to do me a favor. Can I send you a video or a song that I want you to play for the public before I go?
Sure.
It's my new song that I really love. And
Kenneth loves the theme song,
Yeah, let me tell you something. Music does things to human beings, and it reminds me of the days of slavery. Not that I was ever there, but you know how slaves used to go. They obviously every single day of their life they get up and they go through this struggle every day, morning, noon, and night. And music was the only way for them to suppress and pacify the difficulty that they were dealing with. So they used to sing. And music to me is the same thing. Like I when I hear a song that I love and I get in a bad mood or I get upset, I go off, I listen to it. It inspires me and keeps me going. So music is a very important thing to me in my heart. A little personal thing there. So do me a favor, play this song for everybody.
Yep, got it.
And if you guys like it, it probably is going to be my new theme moving forward. Anyway, love you, Sandra. Love you, K-Man. Guys, have a God bless day.
Thank you very, very much.
I'll be listening to the song, though. I'm going to be listening to you, so make sure you play
it. Don't worry.
Bye.
It's coming up. It's coming up. So, wow, lots of questions still coming in. Miss Darlene says, pull the ad, Kenneth, and review the requirements. If I remember correctly, you were a PA superior. No, that's a different situation, Darlene. So you see, this is why it's very, 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 very important, folks, to make sure that we understand what is happening here. These are the things that matter. So Kenneth was never a PA to the previous premier. What he was a, well, let me get what you mean by PA. He was a political assistant. That was a political appointment. So ministers have political appointments, and I want to be very, very clear about this. Those are the positions that they can choose, right? So they have people working in their MP offices. Now, during the last election cycle, those people actually fall under the civil service, and that they get their benefits from the civil service. They're paid through the civil service system instead of the ministerial office getting the funds every month to then try to distribute. So the way that that's done is a little bit differently. Those are the positions, and maybe this is where the confusion is with the person who brought this up yesterday. Those are the positions that a minister has a say in. Who's going to work in his or her constituency office? Obviously, they should be able to dictate. This PA position is in the Ministry of Tourism, right? Or the Department of Tourism. I again didn't really clarify which one, but it is a strictly civil servant position. No government minister should be interfering with the hiring and firing of civil servants. So he has no control over the drafting of that job description or anything else. This is a person who works in the government admin building as a civil servant. So by example, Kenneth would have been, he would have had a little office set up, I guess, next to Alden when he was in as his political assistant. So there are political appointed positions that the ministers, because again, they're political, get to hire and get to have a say in. But no, my dear, this is not what this is. And that's why he clarified that there's an HR manager that would have drafted and had that job description based on whoever, I guess, was in the position before. That is strictly the civil servant. Stop expecting your politicians, folks, to interfere with that process. This is where the waters get muddled. And unfortunately, I dare say that, this is a problem. Why we have too much interference at times in the civil service, and it shouldn't be happening. All right, so let's watch Minister Bryan's video, and then we're going to do our outro for him. And we're like way into overtime. I've got a client actually emailing me saying, are we ready for a Zoom meeting? So I'm going to jettison off, and we are following a couple of court cases as well for you. But here's the video that the minister wants us to play.
I'm a dreamer. Don't tell me not to dream. I got freedom, and that's everything to me. It don't matter what I've got or where I go. I find shelter a million miles from home. It ain't easy to get going when it's hard. Keep shining in the dark when you wanna fall apart. But I'm a dreamer, so don't tell me not to dream. I'm a believer, as long as I got something to believe in. As long as I got something to believe in. As long as I got something to believe in. As long as I got something to believe in. 'cause I got somewhere to run. I just listen to the voices in my head when they tell me I always have something to believe in. As long as I got something to believe in. As long as I got something to believe in. As long as I got something to believe in. As long as I got something to believe in. Hey, you know you got to believe. I got to believe. He got to believe. Ooh, yeah. Hey, come on. Oh, you got to, we got to, she got to, he got to. You got to believe. In the morning, in the evening, late at night, you know. You got to believe. Yeah, I do believe. I do believe. You got to believe.
All right, folks. Jonathan says he loves inspirational music, but it doesn't stop CUC from turning off the power. Woo! A little slap of reality right there. Ling Lin says she loves it. Folks, what a hot mess. I agree. I mean, I love a good song. I agree with Kenneth. It can certainly empower people. Big shout out to Reliable Supplies. All right, big shout out to Reliable Supplies. COVID is here, folks, in a big way. And so you want to make sure that you are properly sanitizing yourself, your environment, the air, all of these things. And Reliable Supplies has a lot of available sanitizing options for you. Purell, they've got the largest supply of Purell, an entire shipment of Purell, everything from the hand sanitizers, the little packets you can keep in your handbag, all super convenient to use. So please go by. They're right there off of Compass Drive, right behind Kirk office, and tell them that Sandy sent you and go by and get stocked up. I actually need to go by because I need some of the packets to keep in my handbag. I got some in a care kit the other day. Big shout out to Miss Sharon. And I gave it to someone less in need. So I've got someone who needed it more than me in that moment. So I've given her the mask and the little packets. I have tons of masks. I actually just got big shout out to Airpost. I got another shipment yesterday of another 100 masks because I'm ordering them, as we go along. Lots of people are asking me about where I've got my black mask from because I've been using the black ones. And so I ordered another 100 of those, which arrived yesterday. And I'll probably in the next week or so order another 100 just in case, I'm stocking up because I find with me what ends up happening a lot is things get they get donated to other people often. So don't forget, folks, Reopening Cayman has started their campaign to get us closer to November the 20th. So please ensure that, you're aware of, you can go and take your Reopen pledge if you are ready to reopen.
I'm ready to reopen Cayman because it's time that our friends, family, and tourists are able to come once again and visit our beautiful island.
When we open up the borders, travel is going to be freer and we're going to be able to travel between countries better.
I'm ready to reopen to be reunited with my loved ones living abroad.
I'm ready to reopen.
#1 hard-hitting live podcast.
All right, folks. Oops, I accidentally clicked on that one. All right, so folks, are you ready to reopen? Please go to the Reopen website and pledge that you are indeed ready to reopen. Folks, that's all I got for you today. Maybe Kevin can rejoin us tomorrow. We can have a little chat with him in relation to, the discussion that we were having earlier, breaking down the COVID numbers a little bit. I'm going to try to chase up and follow up with government in terms of if they're going to be able to come onto the program to break down the isolation and lateral flow recommendations that they put out there in the public, because I think it's really important that people have access to that information. Otherwise, it's a little bit difficult for people to understand what they need to do. So I'll let you guys know in tomorrow's show if we can get that going. In the meantime, folks, it's Hump Day Wednesday. Please go out there and be safe and have an absolutely wonderful day. And we will see you all tomorrow morning, God's willing.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.